Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to MBR, or as we like to call it around here, Nothing But Rants, the show where I find topics that I'm oddly passionate about and I pontificate upon them. These are not hot takes, but rather takes that I'm hot about. What's up? You really like that?
Let's shut up and grind some tape.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into the Film Guy Network on a terrific Thursday evening. We got a saying around here. We say it every Thursday. Last show, best show. Okay, hours 5 and 6, they're going to hit like nobody's business. Sometimes when you ad-lib, it just doesn't free flow off the top as well as you want. But I got a place to start for you right now. It is real crazy how one shared opinion with anybody, with a friend, a colleague, an enemy, one shared opinion, at least for me, can completely sway my overall feeling about a particular person. I could hate your stinking guts, but if you looked at me square in my face and you said, man, I got this weird theory, scouting theory about how Nigerian football players are just like genetically, better football players and they get better. And I look at you and I'm like, you know what? I hated you about 30 seconds ago, but you might be onto something. I've always thought the same. You could be my absolute mortal enemy. If you looked at me and you said, hey man, I'm a film first guy. I watch it on film first, and then I might use statistics as a confirmation tool or a reassessment indicator. I look at you and go, you know what? We were mortal enemies, but I think I kind of like this guy. There's something about this guy I think I kind of like. I have always thought James Franklin is no different than homemade spaghetti, except for the homemade sauce comes out of a jar from the grocery store. Like, at its best, homemade spaghetti out of a jar is like 10-2. But at its worst, it could be 7-5. There ain't no way about that. Or there ain't no doubts about that. That's always been my thought process about James Franklin. He's okay. At his best, 10-2. At his best, really well-seasoned homemade spaghetti out of a jar, right? But, now I think I might love James Franklin because James Franklin finally said what I've been screaming from the mountaintops on this channel ever since there was some new rule about headsets coming to the game of college football. And everybody's like, oh, no more cheating, no more stealing signs, no more signs on the sideline. How many viral tweets did I see about people tweet or holding up the signs on the sideline saying something along the lines of, damn, end of an era. Thousands and thousands of retweets on something that is just false because signs had nothing to do with whether or not you could talk to the quarterback. Signs had everything to do with efficiency and everything to do with the fact the majority of college football offenses are fast-paced offenses. And you can put a headset all you freaking want in one quarterback's ear, but it ain't gonna stop him from having to communicate with the other 10 guys on the field. Congrats. We put microphones in headsets. I've been screaming this over and over again. Why are really smart football people missing this opportunity to talk about this? James Franklin did not. James Franklin regurgitated a take from the Film Guy Network we've been out here just preaching about for months. I want to read this to you today. I don't think it's as significant as people think. I think the whole reason that this got changed is the whole sign stealing deal. I think that was a big reason why this got changed, and it doesn't really help that. A lot of people that passed the rule think it did. If you're running a no-huddle offense and you can talk to the quarterback, how do you get the information to the wideouts that are 53 yards apart from each other? You still have to signal. James Franklin just, Duh. I asked Josh Heupel this question today, or SEC Media Day, and he basically dodged it and didn't want to talk about his process. And I understand that. You're in the national spotlight right there. Franklin was as well, but he was more, proposed just the general question about the headsets. It ain't going to change nothing. The signs on the sideline are there for efficiency purposes, and they're there so you can put one thing up and all 11 people see that. You can't do that with a headset and a microphone, and I can't believe people missed on this, but I do love James Franklin a little bit more today than I did yesterday.
Interested to see, I wonder which obviously your offensive identity, like someone like Tennessee, you're not going to change that because of this, but I wonder if once we get a full season into this and maybe coaches get to see how this is to your advantage, how this is to your disadvantage, and maybe teams will want to slow it down because they feel that the in-helmet communication benefits them the most.
There is no way, if I had a young quarterback, first-year starter, there's no way I would no huddle anything.
Yeah.
We would be talking in that headset until the 15-second marker. We would be talking about our processes. We would be talking about our reads. We would be talking about what we're seeing from the box all the way. We'd be it's 20 full seconds where you can communicate with this individual in between plays. You're right. There's no way. I would certainly alter my operation if I had a younger football player. But if what you do is pace and space, then this is nothing to you. This does nothing, absolutely nothing to you, except for what I'm talking about, which is still clarifications of things, right? Like if Tennessee's out here signaling things, Heupel can pull the headset down and say, "Hey, Nico, watch out for this," or "They showed this, they might do this." Like you can still do all that kind of stuff. I think it's certainly going to help with that. And I also think it's going to help with like just general communications and in-game adjustments.
Yeah, right. But I mean, to your point, that's not why this was implemented.
No.
This was implemented because people said, "Oh, we have to stop signs from being stolen. Let's make the mics into the helmets," which is not going to change this at all.
Does nothing. It was why it was so weird. I can't believe I felt like we were the only show to talk about it this way when it was out. I remember Kirby alluding to it a little bit in one of his answers about when this rule first passed, but like it just seems so cut and dry to me that this would not impact what it's trying to impact, which is people avoiding stealing signs.
Even to your point, though, like if you want to use it for younger quarterback, you probably still want to play with some pace because not only do you want to get the call in, but then you want to get everybody up to the line, see what the defense is doing, and then at that point, if you have to change things, you're going back to the original thought process anyways.
Comment about the AC/DC shirt already. Yeah, it's a thing now. People wear vintage shirts, and I listen to a little bit of AC/DC. My mom was a 70s child, so she was a hairband lady. And yeah, I know about AC/DC, but I ain't like religiously out here pounding the AC/DC. But who is? You know what I mean? Welcome in. We got a loaded show for you guys tonight. It is slam packed. I'm gonna tell you right now, we're gonna do a little bit of a list radio today, and I am personally fond of list radio. I think sometimes it produces some elite content, but no, we do have a loaded one for you. Matt Rhule fired off an absolute hot take, if you could even classify as that. There's a new 105 scholarship limit rule kind of on the way. There were some comments made about that today. I'm going to explain kind of what's going on there and at least my opinion on the situation. I think there's been a lot of I don't think pearl clutching is the right word here. I think there's been a lot of no, don't take my walk-ons. Just hold your breath. It'll be all right. We're gonna play a game with Michigan. Okay, Michigan, more LSU 2020 or more Georgia 2022. That's the game we're going to play tonight. I think it'll be fun. Top 10 most hated players of all time. And there might be a special list coming tonight that has been, highly anticipated on this channel since I first alluded to maybe potentially dropping it. But it's a hot list.
I was gonna ask this like one of these lists you had to think about like a shower thought, but I actually never mind about that because that's a bad thing to say for this segment. And that joke will hit when that
joke will hit in a little bit. That joke hits right now.
Because it's not something like, all right, I'm going to go in the studio today and I'm going to think about like scheme it up. Like, during work hours. It's like, let me think about this off the side.
But I did.
Okay, yeah.
I did. I put this together during work hours, certainly not in the shower doing my other creative thoughts.
Good
Welcome
job,
in.
Man.
This is a great time to give a shout out to our friends over at Prize Picks. If you have not already, head over to prizepicks.com. Use promo code Brooks. You get a 100% deposit match. What does that mean? You put up to $100, you'll instantly get matched there today. It is Thursday over there, so tomorrow is Flex Friday. So go ahead and start looking at the slate maybe and see if you can get some action in over on Prize Picks using promo code Brooks, again, with that 100% deposit match. Also want to ask you to go ahead and hit that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, rate, and review. We had really, really good numbers on yesterday or Tuesday night's live stream. I hope we can return with that kind of force again tonight. If you're watching us on rewatch, we are live Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, 8 to 10 o'clock here on the East Coast. It still baffles me how many different people either just see us on Instagram or just see us on YouTube and don't know we write, or just don't know all of the machines. So make sure you're supporting it wherever you can. Appreciate you. Whether you're reading on Bulldogs on SI over there, or whether you're hanging out watching us on Twitter, or whether you're watching us on YouTube, we appreciate the support. Hit those thumbs up button, like, subscribe, rate, review, all that good stuff. All right, let's talk about this Matt Rhule take, because this was fiery stuff right here. Now, It never behooves these coaches. It never does, because they're always getting clickbaited and title driven. I shouldn't say clickbaited. It's all title driven. And the title on Matt Rhule's comments today were Big Ten automatic 4 best conference ever, better the NFL of college football. And that's kind of what he said, but that's not really what he said. Here's the full quote. I think we'll have a lot of success, or a lot of access to the college football playoff. I think 4 teams from this league should get in every year because this is the best league. This is the NFL of college football in my mind. That was end quote. Almost everywhere on the tweets, on the graphics that you saw when you saw this quote. That was the end quote. That was not the actual end quote. He goes on. It stretches from coast to coast, different time zones, different weather. That's not to diminish any other league. The SEC is amazing. These other leagues are great, but the challenge in the Big Ten is going to be really difficult. Travel, weather, and great teams. I got a couple of takeaways here. I partly agree with the quote. Everyone buried. The weather part is completely valid in its base. The Big Ten, more than any conference in the country, actually has a balance of this, where you're going to get some heat during the early part of your schedule. You're going to get an actual fall weather early, in early October, and then in November, December, you very well could be playing in several inches of snow with heavy wind and all that good stuff in that conference. So I fully agree with that. Also, the geographical locations, not just the weather, having to travel clear across the country. Now, it's self-inflicted with that conference's selections and expansion, adding those West Coast teams. But he is correct. You still have to travel East Coast to East or West Coast. You have to balance those time zone changes. You have to balance the general time it takes to travel that distance on top of the weather. So I kind of agree with him there, but let's be real. The talent of the SEC is the only NFL comparison. These next 2 takes I'm about to give you are very easy, but I don't think the numbers, I didn't think the numbers were as staggering until I ran them today. Just how much of a wage gap there is, and much of a talent gap there is between the SEC and the rest of the conferences. This year alone, I think the SEC had like 68 draft picks, maybe 69 nice draft picks. Okay. If you took Georgia and Alabama out of that, they have 42. Okay, that's how many the Big Ten had alone. So, like, the investment from the NFL into the SEC is apparent every single year in the draft. But it's even more apparent when you look at the active rosters. The SEC accounts for 440 of the 1,696 total players in the NFL. That's 26.5%. That's over a quarter of the entire league comes from 14 teams, now 16. Texas and Oklahoma weren't even included in these numbers that I ran today. Okay, so the idea that it's anything close to the NFL, no, it's from a talent basis, it is not. Geographically, yes. Weather, yes. End of comparison. When you're talking about quality of football and talent of football, it's that. So that was one part, the NFL thing. And then he's talking about 4 teams access to the playoff. Buddy, I really don't have to get too far into this take. Just look at the national championships that have come out of the college football 14 playoff. There's 2 from the Big Ten. The rest are the SEC, and there's 2 to the ACC from 1 team. But it's not even close. And I hate doing the it's not even close. But the idea that this conference, because it's got good weather and a variety of weather, and geographically it's like the NFL, and the fact that y'all asking Rutgers to go out to LA, that does not mean you get 4 to a seed at 12. That's not how this works. So I thought that was a blasphemous take. I thought it was pretty easy to just tear it the hell down.
I mean, I think anybody would tell you that 4 teams from any conference would be a stretch.
Correct.
I mean, sitting here saying that there's going to be 4 teams from the SEC, I think a lot of people would bat their eyes at that and be like, I don't necessarily agree with that, because that's a lot. I mean, you're
not predetermined.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No conference needs 4 auto bids from a conference. That's way too many. It kind of ruins the whole purpose of why we wanted to expand to 12, because you wanted some more variety. If you're just going back to like having 4 teams from the SEC or Big Ten or whoever you want to call it, I think that kind of diminishes the purpose.
Facts.
Yeah, I feel like I have a propensity to want to defend Matt Rhule in this just because I know the quote got taken out of context. Which I don't think is fair to him, but you're right. It's not the NFL. I understand his comparisons, and I completely agree with that as far as the weather standpoint. Georgia doesn't have to travel to California to play a regular season football game, even though they almost did. But it's not from a talent standpoint, and I think that's the main argument you're going to have when you compare these teams or conferences to the NFL. So,
Rich coming from Nebraska too,
yeah,
that of all, and I understand what Matt Rhule's doing. You got to go to bat for your conference every now and then,
100%.
But coming from that program at this very moment, I think it's a little rich.
All right, so Matt Rhule had a bad take, but I want to address a comment right quick because I'm just scrolling and I see it. Tyler Mash says, probably no chance you see this, Brooks, but I just wanted to let you know that I started a new diet 2 days ago and cut out sodas 2 weeks ago because all I could hear you saying is fat don't get old. This is a fact. Okay, this is a fact. This is something I'm continuing to work on a day-to-day basis. So 100% Tyler. Let's go ahead and give that boy Tyler 3. 100% great job there. And yeah, a challenge to the rest of the audience. Fat does not get old. Okay, this comes from a take where I was out in Destin, Florida in the middle of February because my psycho ass only takes certain vacations at certain times of the year, like every other football beat reporter should be doing. But I'm out in Destin, Florida in the middle of February. It ain't nothing but, what do you call them? Old hairs or whatever, right? It ain't nothing but northern folks traveling south because the southern winters in Florida are way easier than they are in New York. But it's nothing but old people. And guess what? There wasn't no fat old folks out there walking around in Destin, Florida in the middle of February. And I'm trying to be old. I ain't trying to be fat and old. So yeah, hit the diets, do what you got to, get after it. I'm certainly on a new one as well that I am all about as of late. So yeah, hammer that. All right, Matt Rhule, bad take. Not the worst take we've heard all offseason. There's been some bad ones, and we felt necessary to go ahead and rank these bad takes, boys. So we have a top 3 worst takes of the offseason. Who wants to bat lead off?
I can bat lead off.
Let's do it, baby.
I'm
Let's do
confident
it.
in my leadoff spot. My first worst take of the offseason comes from none other than Urban Meyer. This comes back to when he was calling out the cheaters. Urban Meyer himself, a very controversial head coach himself, and I'll read you the quote to kind of refresh your minds. He said, if you're a woman basketball player like the great girl from Iowa, Caitlin Clark is who he's talking about.
The great girl from Iowa.
That instantly tarnishes this entire quote from that. And they want to put her on a billboard and pay her. They should be able to do that, Meyer said, but that's not what happened. What happened is the arms race of collecting money from donors, and the donors are simply paying players. That's what I understand is happening, and I don't like that. And it's rich coming from Urban Meyer because that would be like us telling you not use Prize Picks. That's like we're using Prize Picks on the daily, and we're doing all those good stuff, and we're going to be the ones to tell you not to. That makes no sense. So I thought that was a bad take, just coming from the wrong person. Wouldn't be a bad take if it's coming from majority of other people, but coming from Urban Meyer, that's a little too much for me. My second one, Paul Finebaum, been in the show notes a lot, and he's coming back.
Finebaum been cooking lately,
and this one is very much deserving of being called back to. This is when he was talking about coaching not mattering anymore because the brand is bigger than the coaches.
This is a great take.
And there are multiple quotes in here, but I'll read you the big chunk of it, the one that really gets the meat of this take. Now, listen, Nick Saban was a standalone coach. There has really never been another one like that. I think the question starts to be asked, like, who out there is that person? Really, the answer is nobody. Kirby Smart, for all of his success, is not somebody that could walk down Fifth Avenue in New York and be overwhelmed by people. Freaking ads popping up. Nick Saban would have been recognized. Kirby Smart, yeah, you might have somebody look at him, but they're probably going to do a double take. Ryan Day, I think, could walk down the street and hardly anyone would recognize him. I think that just the premise of saying that coaching not mattering, because that was the title of this was the big portion of this quote. I think that's foolish to say in this type of sport, especially when you're talking about college athletes and the level of play that you're at. Coaching is always going to matter, and we see that show up in football games time and time again. And I would argue to say that Kirby Smart, very well-known person, the biggest name in the sport too.
Especially when we've increased the do-or-die moments in this sport, what, 5-fold?
Yeah.
4-fold? With the expansion of the playoff? Threefold. If you get a top seed. 4-fold elsewhere. But you can't have, we didn't show up today because our coach didn't have us locked in all week. Like, coaching matters more than ever, I would venture to say.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then my last one.
Oh, and by the way, your roster turns over by 45% every single year. College football coaches are far more important than ever before. Terrible
Absolutely.
take.
My last one is CBS predicting that 7 SEC teams would win 10 games this year.
That's hot.
That's so hot. I mean, I don't even know if that has ever happened for any conference. That is so many to put 10 wins to your top 7 teams. I mean, I'd almost want to say it's statistically impossible nearly.
Everyone was 10-2.
Yeah, except for Georgia. Georgia was undefeated.
Okay.
And then I think one team they pinned as one loss, Texas. They gave them the loss to Georgia.
What do you do? What do you do with your college football playoff at that point?
Holy crap.
You're screwed.
You are so screwed.
You're so screwed.
Hide under the desk and cry.
Yeah, I guess. It's not happening.
You better hope some of those 2 losses are ugly.
You know what? Chat's got a good point. This didn't that article come from the national team over there?
Yes.
What better way to get every single one of your team sites to write about that article than put 10 of them as 10-win teams?
Yeah.
Or as many as humanly possible.
Good business strat.
Tennessee ran an article on that, no doubt.
Yep.
Who else snuck in there with 10 wins? Ole Miss, yep.
In Missouri?
Alabama,
Missouri,
Georgia,
yep.
LSU, Missouri, Ole
LSU's
Miss,
writing that
Tennessee.
article. Tennessee's writing that
Texas.
article. They're all writing that article.
Absolutely.
Damn.
So yeah, maybe it's a smart business decision to just make as many as possible.
Not a bad idea.
Chess. My turn, or you want to go?
I think we should give Jonathan 3. That boy JWIll, give him 3. I'm feeling 3. Go ahead.
You did it again. All right, first bad take comes from none other than Shedeur Sanders.
Oh, yeah.
Him saying Colorado is going to be every team's Super Bowl. Now, Quinn Ewers did something similar to this where we're going to be every team's biggest game. What were you going to say?
I was going to take the Robert Griffin III take on this. Have you heard his spin on this?
I don't think I have.
No team, you don't have a higher television rating ever than when you play Colorado. So technically they are everyone's Super Bowl. If you look at it in just terms of like, it is the biggest game they will play this year in terms of eyes.
Okay, that's if you're doing it in that sense. Do you think that's what Shedeur meant?
Shedeur was thinking we're the big man on the block. That's how he said it.
Yeah, and like
that's a shit take.
We're their Super Bowl always happens when a good team gets upset, saying like that was your most important game. You're basically saying that Colorado's going to be your most important game of the season. It might bring the most ratings, but I don't think it's the most important game. Second worst take, and this was a take that was through the other offseason. CFB 25, EA College Football 25 will just be a Madden reskin.
Oh, yeah, that's a bad take. Is that number one bad take?
It's not my number one.
Oh, man, there must be a shit take up on top of that. I had a bad take, and I'm standing by it. I think they did put too much shit in it.
What do you mean?
The video game. I think they put too much shit in it. Like, Road to Glory is just... have you played Road to Glory?
Oh, yeah.
I do not like it.
Really?
Personally, I think it's like why I gotta read text messages about being on DD duty. I gotta read text messages about the guy in front of me's girlfriend breaking up with him. Like, come on, too much. Also, too much. Like I don't know. It's just, to me they put way too much.
Supposedly they put career-ending injuries in the game.
That's crazy.
That's fire.
That's crazy.
I saw that on Twitter.
Fire.
Yeah.
I will say this. I have 2 careers going right now. One of them's a quarterback, one of them's a running back. The running back one, I about broke a damn controller up in here the other day because I'm supposed to be winning a position battle. We go play Georgia, and all of a sudden I won the position battle, but I don't get reps.
You want to hack for that? So there's a setting you can go on to Road to Glory, and you can diminish the subs, how often they sub.
Okay.
So if you're the starter, just knock that sucker down a good bit, and then you won't get taken out. Because people were complaining, like, I get 20 totes, but when I get there, like, for the whole fourth quarter, I don't get the ball, and we're in crunch time. So if you knock that down, and you're the starter, you'll be fine.
Good note.
Yeah.
It's way better than Madden, though.
Oh, it's so much fun.
It plays way
more fun. Plays faster.
Yeah. Fantastic game.
Defense is real, and like it's hard to play, but I feel like the passing defense is getting there. I'm getting there.
Yeah.
You know, once you figure it out.
It makes you actually have to read an offense and go in there and actually figure out where you're going to play.
All right, you got one more. You got one more shit take.
I think this is probably the worst take any college coach, media member could ever give, and it's probably made a PR member quit immediately. Mike Gundy's rant.
Oh God!
About Ollie Gordon. First off, saying our punishment for him is just going to be giving him more
50
carries.
totes.
We're gonna give him
50 totes. We're gonna turn the substitutions off on the road to glory.
His week 1 Heisman odds are gonna skyrocket.
That's bad take number one. That's kind of like, that's not how you should handle a player getting a DUI. But then him going, well, I had to actually research what is a DUI, and hell, I do that 1,000 times. I've done that plenty of times before. What? Why would...
Yeah, that was crazy.
That was insane. That's probably the worst take I've ever seen a college coach give.
I Googled DUI and my picture popped up.
It's wild, the idea that you're a 55-year-old man, 57-year-old man, however old he is. This has been a while since I'm a man.
I think I was like 2008.
I'm a man. I'm 40. I drink and drive all the time.
You're like a 55-year-old man and you didn't know the legal limit. Also, while always driving apparently near or past the legal limit.
And then realizing, oh my God, I do that all the time.
How many times do you think you get in a car a year? Because it's probably like right around 365 times. I'll probably get in the car.
You almost have to double it.
I would say it's probably 1,000.
3 times a day.
Because you go in the car, then you got to leave.
You're right.
1,000 probably.
At least got to double
He's done this 1,000 times in his life, at least roughly. I've done that 1,000 times. So when you've done something 1,000 times, it is habitual at that point, because that's the only time you would use that phrase. I've done that 1,000 times.
Right.
You only say that about stuff you've probably really done tens of thousands of times.
Yeah.
Mike Gundy's a big 3 brewski, go home, take a drive type of guy.
Mike Gundy definitely drinks 7 or 8 beers at the course and then drives home. There is no doubt about it. For sure.
Never Ubered a day in his life. Doesn't even have the app on his phone.
But out there in Oklahoma, roads are a little bit flatter, a little bit straighter, and a whole hell of a lot less active. So not condoning it, but he's gotten away with it thousands of times. That's a pretty shit take. Hey, Christian Kirby, give him 3. All right, I got 3 for you. Number 3, DeBoer can't recruit in the South. I did it myself. I think we found out really, really quickly. If you're competent, I think you're going to recruit nowadays really well at the University of Alabama. Again, when he first got the job, I think is when we started talking about the idea of the 5-hour radius, of what that means and how it is going to, essentially placate itself onto your roster, or at least play out on your roster. That 5-hour radius, your proximity to talent is very important on the recruiting trail, no matter what coach you are, no matter who you are. And his proximity to talent is bar none. It's second to none, I should say.
Yeah.
Number 2, and this one happens every year, but apparently we have increased the dumbassery in the SEC media by 100%. Somebody voted for Vandy last year. 2 people voted for Vandy this year. And I didn't feel bad this year about not voting, because I didn't find the email, couldn't find the email, and I didn't feel bad. And you know why? Because this dumb shit. Why do I take 35 minutes to go through this? Because it's a lengthy ballot. Okay, why go through the process when dippies are doing this? Okay, Vandy got 2 votes, LSU got 2, and South Carolina got 1. Okay, twice as many people apparently thinks Vandy. The problem with the Vandy people, they think they're funny. The real problem with the South Carolina voter, he obviously must believe that shit, because he was out of nowhere. You want to make a joke, you do Vandy. You want to think you're serious, you might make a take like South Carolina.
Well, it was probably in response to Shane Beamer's. I know y'all are going to put us at 13. Someone was probably like, I'm going to put him at 1. Just
what? F you, Shane Beamer. Joke. This is anonymous. I think that's the real problem with this.
Yeah,
all of this is anonymous. It shouldn't be anonymous. We should all know who you're voting for. We should. Most people tweet it out, but these 2 dippies, they would get rid of them somehow. And then the number 1 worst take also comes from SEC Media Day. By far the worst take of the offseason. Shane Beamer essentially connoting that South Carolina's floor is the college football playoff, and there is no ceiling at South Carolina. Staring down the barrel of, let's hope you're 500 to keep your job. That's tough, bro. That's a tough take to be out here selling.
It's really bad when you and I were sitting here the other day talking about trap games, and we were going through South Carolina's. It's like, your trap games are Old Dominion, Wofford, and the third one was what was there was another one. It was right
Citadel?
there in the middle, something like that. It was 3 cupcake games, and in the article it was like I was writing like, you have to win this one because you can't possibly lose these ones. Basically,
no, like their non-conference schedule is absolutely 1,000% must win, and then it's the rest of the game is like, hey, can they sneak up on somebody? They're going to be underdogs in a lot of football games this year, and Mans was out here selling playoff hopefuls. So that's a bad take. Let's Let's see here. Let's stay in list mode, shall we?
Ooh, I like lists.
Keep it going.
Let's stay in list mode. 24/7 released an article, top 10 most hated football players in college football, which we do a little thing here called let's read everybody else's list and then let's make content out of that, but not use theirs and make our own. So here we go. Top 10 most hated football players. I'm going to go first since I went last here. This is college football players of all time. I want to state first and foremost, you will find out that there is no Johnny Manziel on my list. I think that makes me very unique. At least I haven't found out you guys's, but every list I read and every list I looked up that had Johnny Manziel on it. I'm sorry, but in my demographic, every individual that I knew in my close proximity to me that I ever talked football with ever had nothing but love for Johnny Manziel. They loved watching that dude. The only exception, Alabama fans. And I'm going to tell you, I don't run in a lot of circles with Bama fans. Okay, so I don't know him. Like, if you out here with Johnny Manziel hatred, open door policy here. Express yourself. Other than that, I feel like everybody loved Johnny Manziel, so I don't understand why he keeps making all these lists. Here we go. 10, Shedeur Sanders. Everybody loves that one. It ain't really his fault. It's kind of your dad's, but you make the list at number 10. Number 9, Brian Bosworth. I think everyone kind of understands why that one's on the list, even though my uncle did tell me a story one time. I'm in a groove, by the way, tonight. My uncle played football at Kansas, okay? Like walk on, not really any good, but played football at Kansas. Well, I mean, just the God's honest truth. Was on the sideline. They were at one point during the Oklahoma years when Bosworth was there, they were a 68-point underdog at home to Oklahoma. Kansas was. This is how bad football was at the time. Okay. Brian Bosworth blew his knee out in the middle of the football game. He was signing autographs for Kansas Jayhawk cheerleaders on their sideline, sitting on his helmet. Brian Bosworth, one of the most hated football players of all time. Marcus Vick comes in at number 8. Fun fact about Marcus Vick. Marcus Vick got kicked off of Virginia Tech's football team for, quote, violation of team rules and consistent unsportsmanlike conduct. He was stomping on players. I think he spit on a dude one time. There's a whole lot going on with Marcus Vick. Marcus Vick, not very loved. Number 7, Chris Sims. Chris Sims makes the list, and you might not know about Chris Sims, but Texas fans do. Texas fans probably wanted to murder Chris Sims for about 3.5 years because Mac Brown just consistently wanted to start the guy in the midst of like real national championship contending rosters, but Chris Sims was just wetting down his leg left and right. Ended up having a decent NFL career before he ruptured his spleen and gives decent takes nowadays, but nonetheless he makes the list because Texas fans absolutely despised my mans. The next two are basically I hate Notre Dame. Monte Te'o, Jimmy Clausen, flip them however you want. Didn't love either of them. Didn't love what they stood for because they stood for Notre Dame, and get over yourself, Golden Domes. All right, they are right there. Number 4, Jameis Winston. I don't know if people hated Jameis Winston as much as they love to hate on Jameis Winston and make fun of him. You don't help yourself when you're stealing lobster or crab legs. It was crab legs from Publix. You also don't help yourself. I think it was in the league when he had the Uber problems, or was that when he was at Florida State?
I think it was in the league.
Either way, didn't help yourself. A lot of people don't like Jameis Winston, or at least they didn't in college. Now he's just this guy that says goofy stuff that everybody loves to laugh at. I was about to say,
did he have one of the better flip the scripts?
100%. And he did not do so as a starting quarterback. No. He did so as a backup of now being this guy who's going to say things. Can't wait for the television career. Tebow keeps popping up here. I'm sorry, but you can't be religious royalty and make my most hated list. Yeah. The good Lord wouldn't allow me. Number 3, Caleb Williams. You paint your fingers pink, you cry in the front stands, everyone's going to love to hate on you, especially when you're that damn good and you go 7-5. Just comes with the territory. So there's that. Number 2, Chris Sims was on the list because his fan base hated him. This guy's on the list, and the only guy on the list that has the rare combination of his own fan base hated him, and then he got good, and his fan base loved him. And that's Stetson Bennett. And everybody hated him once he got good, right? So he had the hate from his own, and then he had the hate from everybody else. And, he's Stetson Bennett. So I love that. I love him. I had to have number 2. And then number 1, the only person to kill a set of trees, Cam Newton. Cam Newton, number 1. They put one of them Cam Newton jerseys on Bear Bryant's statue.
That is funny to think about how Cam Newton didn't inadvertently kill those trees.
So I wouldn't poison them trees, Paul. They gonna die? Well, yeah, I think so, Paul.
They gonna die.
Insane.
Man.
There you go.
All right. Not a bad list.
Not you want me to go? Yeah, you can go.
For all you folks that think I'm a Georgia homer, Nick Fairley not on the list.
And again, this is national college football.
It's not like that.
This is all collectively college football fans hated these people because we talked about Nick Fairley. That's very Georgia centralized.
All right, I couldn't number these from 10 to 1 just because I think that's hard to do. So I just listed 10. What?
Whole point of the process. Go ahead.
Jeez.
It says top 10.
Christian Kirby, not giving you 3.
Give them to me in bullet points.
That's what I have.
Coward.
So I have Cam Newton first.
Yeah. You could have just went 10 to 1 and nobody would have said a thing.
Yeah, but I mean, that would be dishonest. I don't want to lie to our audience, bro.
Fake news.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for being honest.
So, first, Cam Newton. I think it's obvious. I mean, the entire laptop scandal coming from Florida and then being around how he was and kind of showboating and all that. Very hateable guy at the time. I kind of like him now, though. Number 2, Johnny Manziel. I disagree with your take on Johnny Manziel. How old were you in the Johnny Manziel?
16, 17, 18.
There's a reason why your peers and the people you talk with didn't hate Johnny Manziel. If you talk to anyone over 25 during the Johnny Manziel eras, they hated that guy. Mm-hmm. Anyone over the age of 25, which makes up the majority of the demographic. I understand. I agree with you where 16, 17-year-olds, 12-year-old me loved it. I thought Johnny Manziel was super cool. I thought he was.
What I'm saying. My demo, I don't know a soul.
That's fair. But
I don't know a soul that was out here like, you know who sucks? F that Johnny Manziel guy. Everybody was doing this one. Everybody.
Oh, yeah.
No, literally, my dad told me one time, he goes, if I ever see you do that shit on the field, I'm yanking your ass off. Like, stuff like that. Like, older demographic, like 25 and up, hated Johnny
Did you do it on
Manziel.
senior night?
Hell no, bro. Johnny Manziel wasn't cool at that point in senior night. I'm not that old.
That's fair.
Good inside joke.
That's fair.
If you throw up the Johnny Manziel money signs in like 2019, people were like, dude, what are you doing? Bro, third one I have, Jameis Winston. I mean, the crab legs, the standing on the lunch table and screaming that.
How about that time Jimbo suspended him and he showed up in full
That's what he got suspended for.
That
Jersey was in
favorite.
the locker, coach.
Yeah.
That was my favorite.
And just his post-game interviews were kind of weird at the time. Everyone loves it now. Like I've said, he had a big PR glow up. Next, I have Deion Sanders. I think that one's kind of underrated. I didn't grow up during the Deion Sanders era, but hearing all the stories I've ever heard about him, he was prime time in college, just like he was in the NFL, just like he is now, and that tends to rub people the wrong way. Stetson Bennett I also have on this list because I think that a lot of people coming through to 2020 were convinced Stetson Bennett was not good. So then when Stetson Bennett started winning games, they
doubled down.
They were forced to double down. They were too prideful to admit, hey, I was kind of wrong about Stetson Bennett. Some people did admit that, but not enough to the point where you had a lot of people looking for reasons to hate the guy. So, like, he's too old to be good. Like, that's still a take that people have. Like, get over yourself. Baker Mayfield. Did you have Baker Mayfield on this list?
I did not.
Really?
I did not. Probably should have, but I kind of liked the fact that he played. I mean, dude, he's 5'11".
Yeah,
the guy's 195 pounds soaking wet. He's not physically gifted. Now he's got a chooch on him. He's got one of the biggest arms like in the league still today in terms of just like raw strength. Mm-hmm. Maybe not as arm talent as much as everybody else, but I mean, I think last 2 or 3 years he's had the longest throw in a game. He threw 173 yards during his second year in Cleveland. He's got a huge arm, but he's like overcome odds guy, played with chip on shoulder guy. I've always been prone to really like
I enjoyed watching him too, but I think a lot of the celebrating and then the arrest and then the planting Ohio State flag or the Oklahoma flag in the middle of the field, that rubs a lot of people, that rubs the older demographic the wrong way a lot. So
I can't remember whose podcast he was on recently, but they were asking him about like, do you regret playing that way? Is there anything you do regret doing in college? And he was like, he went on to say, no, not really. I just played the way that I want to play. And he said, but I will. And they're like, what about your family members? What do they think about it? I said, yeah, Granny still thinks I had an itch on my nuts that game.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Like, oh my, that's classless. Just like the older demographic.
So is not shaking his hand at the point.
I agree.
You know you're about to lose by 50.
I absolutely agree. Yeah. But that action got more of the rise. Brian Bosworth, I think you went over that pretty well. Yeah. Caleb Williams also. I think the aura around Caleb Williams is so dislikable. Like the California quarterback who also does modeling, who paints his nails.
Whose dad constantly talking about how they're going to hold out NFL organizations with leverage.
Yeah, I mean,
just hitting all the nails on the head.
If you're a really good player or quarterback at USC, chances are you're kind of hateable. That's not your fault.
Solid take.
He didn't do things to help his case, but
I'll push back. Reggie. No one hated Reggie.
Quarterback.
Oh, quarterback.
Yeah, if you're like the star, like the Matt Leinarts, the Sam Darnolds, like people usually don't like those guys coming out.
Sam Darnold had Lego man face. That's why.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold looks like a Lego man police officer.
That's terrible.
Hopefully.
Number 2, I have LeGarrette Blount. I thought it was hilarious, but after he knocked out that, was it in Oregon? No, it was Boise State.
Boise State.
He played for Oregon. So
Boise State defensive lineman.
Yeah, I mean,
that's bold. You punch a white guy with tats that plays defensive line in the face. You must be very, very violent yourself.
Straight knocked him out.
Knocked him out.
So he got a lot of hate for that. And mine, not my number 1, but my last list. And I think history has really revised the way people look at this guy's career, because I think everyone forgets how hated he was as a player in college. Tyrann Mathieu. While he played at LSU, now obviously looking back at it, everyone liked him.
Spoken like a Georgia fan, I loved watching him. I did too. I thought it was incredible.
He was.
Was he hated?
Yeah.
Oh, because he did kind of talk some shit.
He talked shit, and then he got kicked off the team for weed, and people were like, "Oh, see this is like 10 years ago."
10 years ago, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, like this is why he's a bad player. So I mean, and the
now it's like, we're gonna have to dock his NIL check for failing his drug.
And the golden mohawk and things like that. And LSU was a really good team that year. He was the star of it. He was a very hateable player during that time. I didn't personally hate him, and I don't think he should have been hated. I didn't see anything really wrong with what he did, but he was strongly disliked during that 2011 season. And that's my list.
Thank you.
All right. For me, I have Manti Te'o at number 10.
Love it.
Number 9, Shedeur Sanders. He definitely he deserves a spot on these top 10s now. Interesting. Maybe he revises it a little bit this year, but not looking likely though.
I don't think
I think it only gets worse.
It's called a heel turn. What's it in the opposite of that?
Face.
A face?
Baby face.
A baby face turn? I don't think he's making one of those.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
This is straight heel family.
At number 8, Brian Bosworth, the neck roll, the mohawk, man. I mean, you're going to get hated on no matter what you do at that point. Like,
I feel like people after watching the 30 for 30s on Oklahoma feel like, oh man, he must have been real fun to watch. No, people hated him.
Yeah, people absolutely hated him.
And the idea that like he was one of the first anti-establishment like figures in college football. He wore the NCAA shirt that he wrote on that said something athletes. It basically a protest in the middle of a football game. I'll have to find it here in a second, but keep going on your list.
Number 7, I have Cam Newton. I have so many reasons why people don't like Cam Newton, whether it's the scandals off the field or that he just absolutely beat your team into oblivion. A lot of reasons why people don't like him. Jameis Winston, you guys have gone on about that one. That one comes in at number 6 for me. Number 5, I have Tate Martell. I think that everybody was preying on that man's downfall before he even set foot on a college campus because of documentary. Yeah. And then he comes out with the quote when Justin Fields announces his transfer to Ohio State of don't swing and miss twice. Tate Martell is the one that ends up transferring, and then his career just absolutely unfolds. What you oohing about?
Bro, I forgot how crazy this was. This man, after an Orange Bowl, put on a shirt that said, it read NCAA across the top, and it said National Communists Against Athletes, and on the bottom it said welcome to Russia.
Hefty allegations
amidst the Cold War.
Sick.
That's crazy behavior, bro.
He's a Dr. Pepper cop now.
Holy hell, we'll never have another one. We will never have another football player that damn bold. What kind of 20-year-old puts that on his shirt?
One that doesn't care
also at all. Sorry to keep bumping into you guys. Have you ever noticed how 24-year-olds, 22-year-olds, 21-year-olds from the 80s look way older than 21, 22-year-olds?
I have a theory
now?
On that.
Was it cigarettes?
No, I think it's because you look and you know that person is truly older than you.
Huh.
Like, I look at, I look at high schoolers now. It's like, I looked way older than them when I was in high school. But I think it's just really because your brain subconsciously goes, I'm older than this person.
I don't know. I saw a video from, 2009 of a college football player who was, skinhead bald and, a full-blown mustache, and he looked 30.
Yeah.
And we actually have 30-year-olds playing college football now, and they don't look that old. I don't know. It's a weird theory. Maybe you're right.
That's just my personal theory. I don't know what it.
Chat's saying they looked older.
Maybe
it's also the quality of the pictures too.
Could be
style as well.
Could be. Style. Where were you at? You were mid-list.
Oh yeah. Number 4, I have Tim Tebow on my list, and I think you guys mentioned
you hate Jesus, huh?
No, I don't hate Jesus, but I think the way he was so outspoken about it, I think is why people did not like him. Because especially what was going on at Florida at the time, I think people found it very hard to believe that there is like this not perfect person, but this better than most people. And Tim Tebow is that. Holier than thou. And Tim Tebow is that. Phenomenal person, great character.
He does give you uppity Christian vibe.
Yeah. And I think that was the reason why people did not like him. And I think that's why he is one of the most hated.
I think Tim Tebow for me was an OLI just because of that. What it was it made it hard to hate because he was so true. Yeah. Like, you wanted to hate him.
And I think that, like, people will tell you now that they don't hate him because it is hard to hate him now because he is so likable. And you see, like, all these different things that he's doing in the world, a lot of good in the world when there's hard to find good in the world right now. But, yeah, he came in at number 4 for me. Number 3, I have Baker Mayfield. Just epitome of it. He was everything. He was everything and then some. Johnny Manziel, number 2.
Hey, by the way, I want to stop everybody with the Baker thing. You know who, at least in high school, we haven't seen him since? You know who plays exactly like Baker Mayfield?
Gunnar Stockton.
When Gunnar Stockton is the guy, Gunnar Stockton plays with piss and vinegar. Gunnar Stockton does not play with, look how quiet and reserved he is. Look at that smile on that young man. No. Gunnar Stockton is a shit-talking, bad MFer, all right, when he is the guy. And we might see him be the guy next fall. And we're going to, like, prime example, all you Georgia fans that are watching tonight, y'all remember watching, at least you should have, that game between Rabun County and Prince Avenue when Gunnar and Brock Vandegrift are facing off. Gunnar as a junior, Brock Vandegrift as a senior. Gunner's, like, literally turning around and running backwards into the end zone, flipping the ball up into the air, getting a personal foul. Gunnar scores in the second half, throws the damn ball out of the stadium. Like, he is a bad dude, all right, and he also happens to be 6 foot with a chooch on him. So he's very Baker Mayfield to me.
And then my number 1 is Caleb Williams because I know that this is a more modern era, and some of these players went around when like social media was as big, but I mean, every single Saturday where Caleb Williams and USC Trojans took an L, I mean, it was just an absolute fest of people pouring down rain on top of his head and just anything and everything they could pull. Then it went on to the NFL draft and whatnot. So he comes in at number 1. I did see someone mention Spencer Rattler in the comments, but Christian and I both think that he became a lot more likable when he got to South Carolina.
When you go to a loser and you get hit like him and play the way he did still, you're nothing but likable. He did a ton for his historical image there. Saw Terrell Pryor on a lot of these lists.
Yeah.
I don't get that one. I loved watching Terrell Pryor.
I think this obviously speaks to the program, but I think it also is just kind of crazy. And I think you could find some that people really just didn't like over this time. But the fact that there was not a single Alabama player named is kind of crazy to me.
That is kind of wild.
But I think it speaks to the program. Like, they keep everything very tight over there. They don't really allow their players to speak recklessly and provide all these quotes for you to become a hateful person. But the fact that they were so dominant for so long and there's not a single player that people want to name on these lists, kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't like a huge personality on that list.
Yeah.
There's never been an Alabama player where it's like they had a larger than life personality.
There's one that everybody hates.
Who?
There's one.
Who?
Jermaine Burton.
Oh yeah,
he's 5 years from now he's on this list. He's not like historic. He's not one. All these guys we're talking about have like real great careers. There's not an 800-yard receiver on this list like Jermaine Burton.
I also don't think Jermaine Burton was ever truly like in the spotlight enough to be hated. Like, it was always more about Jalen Milroe than it was Jermaine Burton.
Correct.
Like, if Devontae Smith acted like Jermaine Burton,
oh yeah,
absolutely.
Oh yeah, he'd be on this list. That's what I'm saying. Maybe he's just not good enough to be this hated.
I would think so. I mean, now Georgia fans obviously hate him, and Tennessee fans hate him, and there's warranted reasons for that. But I don't think from the national sphere.
He strikes me as a lad that would take offense to that. That he's not on a top 10 most hated list.
Probably.
Yeah.
Is Marco Wilson the only player that their own fan base would vote onto this list?
Chris Sims, but yes. Marco Wilson on that list. Cost them a college football playoff.
That's insane.
A shoe-in, pun intended. Like, they were there. It was done. You beat LSU, over with. College football playoff. Doesn't matter what happens in the SEC championship game. College football playoff.
See ya.
15 yards.
I'll never forget that.
38-yard field goal in a freaking mist storm.
Oh, you couldn't see. You could not
field goal. You couldn't even see.
Could not see anything. It was crazy. Should we keep the list rolling? I have a very, very highly anticipated list.
I want to know what this is.
This list was teased. I gave you a tidbit of it like 2 or 3 weeks ago. And man, if my direct messages and my mentions on social media are ablaze with needs for this list, and it is indeed my top 5 most handsome individuals revolving around the college football landscape. Here we go. We're going to go 5 to 1. Number 5, I felt some type of way about putting this gentleman on this list. However, it is truly breathtaking upon interperson reaction or interaction. Jordan Rodgers, a devilishly handsome son of a gun. I mean, and well-dressed, well-tailored, always got the ankles exposed. I will say that. I'm not a fan of that. Sometimes give me some dress socks.
That's how I roll.
You're that guy with the high knit tailor on the bottom. Yeah, I get it, especially if you're rail thin like Jordan Rodgers is. Also got a good coiffed hair. Like me, I'm a hard gel guy. Jordan Rodgers, coiffed hair individual. It's very soft and fluffy. If he gets on a motorcycle or maybe a bird in the city, you can see some flowing in that mane there.
Flowing in the bird.
Yeah, a little flowing in the mane there. Number 4, Cortez Hankton, breathtaking. Breathtaking. I would imagine his skincare routine is just daily moisturizer for sure is Cortez Hankton. Also keeps the line tight. I appreciate a good barber. He's got one, which will placate me into my next guy. Doesn't need a barber, just a good razor. My man Sean Lewis, the head coach at San Diego State. And I had to go bald with a beard because, I felt like I had to have a little balance in this list of 5 handsome men around college football. Sean Lewis, a baldy. Sean Lewis, a real tightly trimmed beard. Sean Lewis, also 6'7". Okay, Sean Lewis got a lot of good things going for him, except for the fact that he's bald. You guys are very selective with your Google image searching. I think Sean Lewis, he's got it going on with the right type of barber and the right type of cleanup.
Those are some thick eyebrows, dude.
Okay. We all got our styles. We all got our preferences. Number 2 on the list, Marcus Freeman. Despite the confirmed allegations of you painting and plugging that hairline, okay, I'm putting you on there because I respect the effort and you're devilishly handsome, even despite the fact that you're certainly using performance-enhancing drugs on your hairline. Damn, that's wild. That's wild to do that to that man. Don't do that to that man. Number 2, Marcus Freeman. Number 1, and will remain number 1 until he retires or gets up off of that college football game day desk. It's Kirk Herbstreit. Kirk Herbstreit. Even handsomer, even more fine.
Very blue eyes is what I've heard.
Very blue eyes on Kirk Herbstreit. You got a chuckle over there. What you got going on?
The way you show
the comp over there?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's such a wild pull.
You can't unsee it now, though, can you?
No, but maybe we could slide him out the day Sam Hartman stops stealing TV jobs and comes back to college football as a coach.
Yeah,
he's in the XFL now, I think.
Yeah,
already.
I objectively think you should have put Murray on that list.
Murray?
Yeah.
Too close,
you didn't want to. Didn't want to get any allegations.
I didn't want to put our friends on the list, and then you're like, "Whoa, wait, watch out around Brooks, there, Murray."
All right, that's fair.
That kind of thing.
That's fair.
Any suggestions?
I just gave you mine. I don't. I gotta be honest. I haven't pondered this list.
You're out on Sean Lewis.
Yeah.
Find me a more handsome bald man.
In football or just
it's football, college football only. Find me a more handsome bald man.
I'm not gonna Google handsome bald football man. What did you Google to find this list?
Not dedicated to the cause.
What did you Google to find?
Didn't have to. Straight from memory. I keep a photo log of handsome men. I don't know if
that's more
Jesse Palmer.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Jesse Palmer is off of my list because you lose 10 handsome points the moment you go on The Bachelorette. The moment. I'm out.
Minus aura.
And he's like a full-on host now over there.
Oh, no,
That's like what he does.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Other guy got booted.
I'm out, yeah. Any other suggestions? Mike Gundy is crazy.
Who said Mike Gundy?
Mike Gundy if we're wearing beer goggles. That is crazy. Some Lanning comments in there. Again, Lanning, a little too close
Dan Lanning
to home.
actually is a good choice.
Dan Lanning is a good choice, except I noticed Mans can't pull off J's. So if I were trying to find the ideal partner, they would have to be able to pull off a pair of Jordans.
That's the deal breaker?
I mean, it's an elite list.
Interesting.
All right, List Radio. Good stuff right there. 105 scholarship limit. We got a lot to talk about in the next 10 minutes before we get out of here.
Do you want to do that, or do you want to talk about probably the worst opening statement by any coach in history?
I feel bad for DeShaun Foster.
Yeah.
That looked to me like he clearly thought he was going to go up there and ad-lib it and kind of ho-hum around.
Yeah. And was very clearly just very nervous.
Very, very nervous.
And I think majority of people have been in those shoes in some capacity.
Don't worry. Our boy from 24/7, they wrote the feet article, Marcelo. Our boy Marcelo wrote a whole 1,000-page article about how
1,000 pages.
He just 1,000 word. How he just got off to a bad start. How he followed him around afterwards and wrote a pub piece about how
good
that y'all missed out on DeShaun Foster.
Part of me feels bad because that is very hard to go up on that stage and do that poorly, and that's going to stick with him for a while. But it's also like, write something, man. Go out there with bullet points at least. Be a little more prepared. Like, that's your first introduction as the coach of a major program, and you thought you were just going to go out there and ad-lib it. Like,
I saw their opening game line move to full point.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Move to full point. Because of that right there.
That's just...
What did he say is the question. The question is, he didn't. He didn't. He got in front of a microphone and was like, so we're from L.A.
Glad to be in the Big Ten.
L.A.'s nice. I'll take some questions. That was it. It was 90 seconds of that.
Yeah.
It was real tough. A lot of
silence.
Honestly, I wouldn't even recommend like you searching for it if you're one of those people that like I was cringing. I had to stop watching. Secondhand embarrassment was real. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No doubt about it. It hurt. So yeah, I mean there's that. I felt bad for DeShaun.
Yeah.
But this is a guy, and he even said this. He alluded to this afterwards. He is a football person. He is not a person who's spent his life being a football coach. There is a difference. There are certain people, like I don't think Dan Campbell was an interim head coach in Miami, and the media made fun of him while he was down there. And then he goes up there to Detroit, and he has we're going to bite people's kneecaps off, and he's, drinking 36 ounces of high octane coffee every morning, and he's doing all these like goofy things that people make fun of him about. And then he goes and wins, and the rest of stuff's like, oh, he's just football guy. I thought Vrabel had some of this as well.
Yeah.
And it really is, and I'm going to NFL examples because they get them seemingly more often than college for some reason, where the NFL is more likely to take stabs on a DeMeco Ryans who just got done playing football 5 or 6 years ago, as opposed to taking a stab in college on a guy like DeMeco Ryans. They're more apt to go, oh, well, have you been a head coach before somewhere else, or have you been a lifer in the coordinator position? We'll give you a chance to coach. Isn't that weird how that works?
Yeah.
I see the NFL doing this all the time, or at least more frequently as of late, hiring former players, not lifelong coaches. Just a thought. Doesn't really explain DeShaun, but it does, because some of these coaches have been doing these speech things for years, whether they started as a small Division II coach or whether they're, lifelong offensive coordinator that got a job at a mid-major school that's now at a big school. Most of these guys, it's not their first time standing up in front of a microphone like that in a setting like that. You could tell it was Jeff Lebby's first time doing it. I mean, he was very, very noticeably uncomfortable. But anyways, yeah, let's do this 105 thing, and then we'll hold. I think we had 2 topics left. We'll hold the Michigan debate for another day. But anyways, let's talk about this 105 because this is a big rule change in college football. It's a proposed rule, likely to move to 105 scholarships. That's an increase of 20 scholarships per roster. I would assume this is P4 only. I didn't read that far into the report.
Likely, yeah.
And it's for majority of sports. It's like all the big sports are getting a
correct. It's a bunch of different teams getting a scholarship bump. But we're here to talk about the impacts of it on football, because there's also rumors that this might also relieve or alleviate the opportunity for walk-ons, and this had everyone gasping and everyone going, oh no, especially people in this market, because walk-on stories are very, very near and dear to the story of Georgia football. They're very near and dear to the story of Clemson football. I can't think of more famous examples elsewhere, but some people have a real special place in their heart for walk-on stories, and I understand that completely. But we just increased the roster size by 20%. We just took 1/5 of the roster and gave more people opportunities to go get those scholarships. So that alone is great, and it's going to trickle down effect, right? Where the walk-on that you went to Georgia. Let's take an example of like Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett now becomes probably a 4-year guy at Louisiana Lafayette, right? And he becomes maybe the greatest quarterback at that university. And that's good for Louisiana Lafayette. Maybe Georgia doesn't get their storyline with the walk-on who wins 2 national titles, but maybe 2 other quarterbacks win national titles, or maybe that storyline plays out differently. But Georgia would have been fine in both storylines, probably. Louisiana Lafayette is drastically made different if Stetson Bennett spends 4 years there. And that's good for the overall lifespan of college football, the overall wealth and livelihood of college football. That's important. I think of guys here in the state of Georgia where like a Peyton Strecco was probably has all of the rushing records at West Forsyth. Peyton Strecco goes and was committed to Air Force, and now all of a sudden he's the 3rd string walk-on at Clemson. Well, Peyton Strecco would have had a really, really good career at Air Force. And you look at guys like Cash Jones. Cash Jones in this new rule is probably playing at Houston, or he's probably playing at UTEP, or he's probably playing at a bigger Division I school that he didn't have an opportunity to do so previously. All right, so this is good for the overall expansion and overall opportunities of college football. Just because walk-ons aren't available doesn't mean that this isn't going to increase the level of play on a D1 AA field, because that's good too. I think it's good that, UTC has a football program. I think it's great that Shorter University has a football program, because you increase the opportunities for the growth of football to continue, right? I can't tell you how many guys that I play football with are giving back to the game, whether it be doing something like this or actually being a football coach. And that was only allotted to them. It was only introduced to them. It was only put in them, that spark, because of opportunities through college. And this will only increase those.
Yeah, that's why when I initially saw all the comments about, this hurts walk-ons, like what about these people? My first initial reaction was, you only care about walk-ons of the big stories of the walk-ons that actually turn into something, and how often does that actually happen?
Dummy, dude.
Yeah, you don't. Exactly. So don't give me that fake energy about that. And plus, these great stories of these walk-ons becoming something in college. Like, while I understand that these scholarships will be allotted to more athletes now, and it gives you opportunity to get more athletes on your roster, there's just even more opportunity to get on a scholarship. But even at this point, like scholarships, that word doesn't hold as much water as it used to.
Mm-mm. I do think it's sad that there isn't an opportunity for students to say, hey, you know what? I want to try and walk on at a program that I was a fan of my whole life. Like those opportunities are going to go away now. But at the end of the day, that's not really a big casualty. Mm-mm. Yeah, it stinks, and you're probably never going to get another Stetson Bennett story or something like that because of this, where a guy walks onto a major program and becomes the best quarterback they've ever had. But I get it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think in 5 years, it's not going to be the end of the world. We're not going to look back on this and go, man, I really miss walk-ons.
I think the story will just change. 20 years from now, we'll talk about if Ladd were a quarterback that won 2 national titles. We'll talk about this low-ranked, unranked 3-star that was the 30th or 35th signing in the class of 35 guys, and then he became the best. And look at all these 4- and 5-star guys he beat out. I think we have that same story. It's just altered a little bit because it's not deemed a walk-on.
Right, yeah. Or the guy who went to a non-Power 5 school, then transferred to UGA and became a big player. Like, the story for the underdog that prevailed will always be available. It's just not going to be
more available.
Yeah, it's just not going to be the walk-on path now, which has been, it's so unique to college football and college athletics. Like, there's no really walk-ons in the NFL. Like, you hear a couple of those really touching stories. It's like, he came and did workouts every day and he made the roster, but that's almost never ends in being wildly successful.
Things like that.
Yeah. So.
And I get like Dabo's up in arms, but you know why? His Dabo was a walk-on.
Yeah.
Like, it's very near and dear to his heart. I guess what? I was too. I wasn't after, a couple of semesters, but nonetheless, I mean, I don't think it takes a genius to understand that this helps the wealth of the overall the game.
I agree.
The storylines aren't there, but we'll find other storylines.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not like we're removing an entire lifeblood of the sport. That's not the case. Are we good on National Hour?
We good, I believe.
I'm good. We got a whole nother hour coming up right now.
Welcome into Talk the Dog, the show where we find a bone to pick and a take to give. These are not hot takes. These is dog takes. Can I talk that dog? What's up? Really like that. You really like that? Let's shut up and grab some tape.
All right, we're back for a whole nother hour. It is time to talk some of that dog. We got Trevor Etienne adding some new wrinkles to a pretty fearsome or formerly fearsome rivalry between two SEC opponents. We have give me three questions you want answered or need answered rather, or whichever one want or need answered during fall camp, which is just a week away, gentlemen. We're a week away from college football.
I saw a notification today that an NFL game plays next week.
I think we got some folks that just ain't out here ready for college football. Based off numbers tonight, people are not ready for college football.
That's a shame.
They're not showing up and showing out like they normally do. I don't think the fire is lit in the belly yet. We got a lot of fire in that belly. We're going to figure it out. Maybe fall camp will start that. We got fall camp coming up in a week. 3 questions you want to answer. We're going to play, I guess I'm classifying this as a Rushmore 4 exercise. We're going to play a little game of Rushmore 4 for all the position groups at the University of Georgia. And I think it's going to reveal a little bit of something about the history of Georgia football. And then, of course, we're going to start tonight's show with this Dan Lanning news because he did clap back a little bit. But first and foremost, I want to ask you guys to support the show. Hit that thumbs up button, like, subscribe, rate, review. I'm sure a lot of people will be showing up throughout the show. Make sure you're supporting us wherever you can. If you miss any portion of tonight's broadcast, it will be readily available. However, wherever you get your podcast, just search the Film Guy Network. Make sure you're giving us a prized review over there. All right. Lanning and Kirby have Dan Lanning and Kirby Smart have traded some barbs back and forth. Kirby actually started the jab session at SEC Media Days. During his opening statement, he alluded to their study on the Nike organization and Phil Knight and his whole mantra of assume nothing, during which he made a joke at Dan Lanning's expense about how he wished he had some of that did he use the word untapped? Wish he had some of that NIL money from Phil on the recruiting trail. It kind of made some news. It should have made some news. Also, by the way, not exactly a lie. Oregon's got some money. Oregon's out here trafficking some money at high rates. But nonetheless, it kind of created a bar back from Dan Lanning, both at Big Ten Media Days and since Big Ten Media Days are in Indianapolis, also on the set of the Pat McAfee show. That's the quote I'm going to read to you today or right now. Quote, I think it's impressive that guys like Kirby have been signing the number 1 class in the nation without any NIL money this entire time. Obviously, Coach Smart took a little shot at us. If you want to be a top 10 team in college football, you better have great support. We have that. Georgia ain't broke. But Georgia ain't doing it like you. And he went on at another point saying basically, quote, and this was a bar. This was an absolute bar right here from Dan Lanning. Quote, everyone else right now is focused on our ice cream cone. And if I'm busy looking at theirs, that means my ice cream is melting. Great euphemism, great metaphor, except for the fact that you got an ice cream machine, bro. The rest of us don't. The rest of us just bought the damn ice cream. We got it until it's gone. And then you get to walk over there and say, hey, bro, I need another one. Another large ice cream cone. Give it to me right now, Philly. I need it. Love the euphemism. Love the jab back. Also, we know the deal. We know the deal. We know that you can kind of go get whatever you want whenever you want it.
I love the idea of this playful rivalry between Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning. I hope this builds and builds and that we get rematches of these two facing off against one another, because we all know by now
I hope it turns testy.
Like a little bit of how Kirby and Nick Saban did.
Yeah. I hope it
was
turns.
That for everyone?
That never really did.
Not testy of like they're like taking shots at one another, but like there was a lot of tension, is what I mean. Like, there was a lot of tension every time they played.
Yeah,
I can feel that.
Well, that came with stakes. I hope that happens in this rivalry too.
Right.
Exactly. What you're getting at. I think that came, the vitriol certainly came between the players and the fan bases because they kept bumping into one another.
For sure.
But there was always a I respect him because he's Nick Saban thing. I don't know if Dan's going to have that towards Kirby, though. He only worked there 3 years. It wasn't like he spent 9 with the guy.
Yeah. Well, he spent extended time, not as a DC.
Like 4
Kirby
in
did.
total.
Yeah, it was 1 year at Bama.
Yeah, it was 1 year at Bama. He was a GA at the time.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
There's not like people think there's this like long history. Schumann's worked for Kirby longer at this point than Glenn or Dan ever did.
True.
So there's that.
But yeah, I just think that, obviously the first meeting between these two is Dan Lanning's first game as a head coach. That does not represent what these two teams would be now if they face one another. And so I just hope that we get some playoff matchups between the two and that we just kind of get this ongoing like butting of the heads with Kirby Smart and Dan Lanning outside of the recruiting trail.
It's going to stink, though, because I don't think there really is an opportunity for it to be like this Saban-Kirby Smart. Like, Saban and Kirby Smart shared a conference, and I think 5 of the 6 times they played were either in a conference championship or a national championship. Like, the stakes were always high. Now, when Dan Lanning and Kirby Smart play, it's going to likely be in a playoff game, but that's going to happen once every 2 or 3 years at best, just because of the way the playoff goes and the ranking system such as that. So I don't think there's as much of an opportunity for this to become as marquee of a rivalry as the Kirby Saban was.
Yeah, I do want to address this right here. I think it's impressive that guys like Kirby have been signing the number 1 class in the nation without any NIL money this entire time. No, but it does come at a premium. At least at Oregon, you have to pay a little bit more. It's called the "you are out there in Oregon" tax. Hard to get players from Florida, hard to get players from Texas, hard to get players from California, Southern California, hard to get players from regions of the country where elite football players are constantly at. By the way, he's been able to do so, and a large part is because he's winning, and the other part is because they are very active on the NIL front. As he alluded to, everybody is. They just don't have to pay them to get them to go to Oregon. All right. The proximity to talent down here is much easier. It's much easier to sign a top 3 class or number 1 class at the University of Georgia than it is at Oregon. You know how I know? History. Like years and years and years and years and years of data have told us Southeastern schools recruit really well. Why? Proximity to talent. And the only thing that has changed that is winning or NIL. Any other rebuttals there?
No. Well, it's also because you have the I'm Kirby Smart discount.
Correct.
Like Kirby Smart doesn't have to give you the bag
which only
up front.
comes with winning.
Exactly. Because he can say, look, you want to get paid now, go to a different school. You want to get paid millions and millions of dollars in the NFL, look at my track record. And then just shows every first-round pick he's had over the last 3 seasons. So,
mic drops. Absolute mic drops from Kirby on that. Man, you think we're going to get testy Kirby off the bat? Or you think we get laid back, lackadaisical Kirby? Because we're going to see him within a week. Within a week, we'll have our first Kirby Smart press conference, I would imagine.
First one's going to be testy.
You think so?
Because I feel like every single time when they open up with fall camp, it's we just didn't look good today. Wasn't very pleased.
I'm going to ask him about his limp the very first post-practice. Like, Coach, bro, you've been walking in here for like a year and a half now, laboring. I don't know if y'all have ever noticed, but man's got something going on in his lower legs. Maybe it's an ankle, maybe it's a foot, something that is bothering him from his playing career. Because after he's standing up all day, he come walking in there and he, doing the thing that you do when you're hurting. So I might have to ask him about it. It's like, Coach, you all right?
How do you think he would react to that question?
I don't know. Maybe he would. I don't know. That's why I'm contemplating doing it.
Got to pick the right day.
Yeah.
Definitely not a day when he's in a bad mood.
Well, post practice, never in a good mood.
Yeah.
Never.
But I also feel like he might not be in a bad mood at first this year.
Yeah.
Just going off of the media day press conference he had, yes, he was absolutely Kirby Smart, but he wasn't as intense. And I think that we kind of noticed that there was a sense of kind of relief around him this year because they're not defending national champions. Like the pressure that you have to keep winning constantly. Now, obviously, that's their goal. But the fact that you don't have this, hey, you're the national champion weighing over them, I feel like there's a little sense of relief to that. And I think it showed in his media day speech. Like he came out, he was more lax. He gave a couple more jokes.
I disagree in the sense that I don't ever, being in that building and at those practices, the limited amount we ever are, I never get the sense of relaxed.
I was about to say,
I don't think there's a vibe of relax ever in that building. I think that building is constantly under tension.
There's a difference between suit and tie Kirby and short sleeve windbreaker Kirby.
Very true.
Yes, that's a great way to put it.
Very true.
Whistle around the neck Kirby, there is no relaxation.
Yes.
That is one. And I think, honestly, that's the key to that building. One of the many keys is the amount of tension that is in that building. Mm-hmm. That everyone not walks around on eggshells, but walks around with an expectation of performance that creates tension. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I don't know about that. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I don't think so.
Good. Lanning's going to be a problem for a little while.
Oh, for sure.
Until some type of regulation comes on NIL, and even then, I think he'll be fine.
But I think he's going to be kind of a problem that you're happy to see. Like, hey, good for Dan Lanning that he's doing this. Like, Alabama fans did this throughout the 2017 season, right up until they had to play Georgia in the national championship. Like, it was, hey, really happy to see Kirby Smart doing so well at Georgia. And then as soon as you had to play him for a national title, it was, we hate him.
Patronizing big bro shit.
And everybody loves when Oregon is good. Like, everybody, there's so many things to like about Oregon. The different jerseys, like, when they're good and they're relevant and you're constantly seeing, like, all these new jerseys they're breaking out. Like, everybody loves when that brand is good.
That's fair. All right. We do have fall camp within a week. All right. It starts August 1st. They will be out there in helmets. I believe there's still an acclimation period in college football. At least there was when I was playing.
Can you get around that though?
No. There are certain ways you can cheat it, but you can't get around it.
You can't do helmet practices 3 days early and then say, all right, now it's fall camp.
No. The moment you can't do organized team events with coaches on the field until within a month of your first game. So once that happens, there is an acclimation process where you have to go like 2 practices in helmets, then 2 practices in shells, then you can put the full pads on and do that. However, I think the way some programs have figured out a way to cheat that is they'll do like a real helmet practice, and then the next morning they'll do a walkthrough, but they'll put helmets on and they'll call it a walkthrough, a helmet practice. They'll count it as a helmet practice, and then they put pads on that very same day.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. That's a way to kind of get bypast these things, but the walkthrough has to be a dead ass walkthrough. All right, because the moment someone starts running, if an NCAA clearinghouse guy is there, they could count that as a practice, and then you overrun your practice for hours. There's a bunch of these rules that people do not follow. Did you know there's a 20-hour rule in college football?
Yes.
A 20-hour rule.
The GAs are only, yeah.
You can't do football-related activities more than 20 hours a week. I'm here to tell you right now, at every football program, every player breaks that by Wednesday. Every player breaks that by Wednesday. It's ridiculous. We used to joke about it because we're playing D2 ball, right? So it didn't matter. We're playing D2 ball, and we got, weights from 6 to 7, meetings from 7 to 8. There goes 2 hours. Mm-hmm. Practice starts at 3 o'clock and runs till 7, essentially. 6:30 is when you get up out of practice. 7 o'clock is when you get out of the building. Oh, boom, there's another 4 hours. So now we're at 6. Oh, by the way, mandatory study hall, 90 minutes at the end of the day. Now we're at a 7.5-hour work day. We do that Monday through Thursday off rip no matter what. There's 28.5 hours right there. We still got a Friday walkthrough practice and a damn game to play before we even meet whatever 20-hour rule. I always thought it was so crazy. The idea that there is this known rule, everybody knows it, and everybody knows it's horseshit that everyone's out here breaking.
Facts.
Classic NCAA. Mm-hmm. Like when people got all up in arms about the NIL stuff and like blamed it all on the NCAA, I was like, first of all, that was the presidents that withheld all the income forever. But additionally, like they're just trying. They're trying to hold everything in. Everything keeps slipping out of the cracks. 3 questions you want to be answered or need to be answered this fall camp, or do you want to talk about Trevor Etienne?
Let's do a list.
Let's do the list. Let's keep the list going.
Let's keep the list radio going. 3 questions you want / need answered this fall camp. Who wants to go first?
I can go.
All right, go for it.
All right, first question I have is, who are the new dogs in this team? Not dogs as in Georgia Bulldogs. Dogs as in guys that are absolute killers. We knew Kamari Lassiter was one of these. You knew Javon Bullard was one of these. To a sense, Brock Bowers was one of these guys. Might not have been as boisterous, but I want to find out who are these guys, and they're going to emerge fall camp. I think we have a good lead as to perhaps KJ Bolden does that, perhaps Trevor Etienne, guys like that could step up, but it's really going to be solidified who they are come fall camp. Next question I have is, what's the temperature on the D-line room this year? I think D-line was kind of the one area in the defense you got questions coming in this season. The injury to Jordan Hall still adds a lot to it. Makes more questions for it. So I think that's another area where it's going to kind of get a gauge on that come fall camp. And the third one is the running back rotation. We know Trevor Etienne's probably going to be the guy, but is he going to be splitting rips with Broderick Robinson? Hey, by the way, is Brenton Robinson going to feel better? So kind of getting a gauge as to what that's going to look like, I think would be a very interesting thing to answer.
That boy Christian Kirby, give him 3. I'm going to go next, and I feel like mine are a little bit lengthier, but it is what it is. First and foremost, what is the DB rotation? Okay, what is it going to end up being? My hypothesis right here, okay, this is how I think this is going to operate. I think Malachi Starks and Dan Jackson start out at safety. KJ Bolden is going to get burned, like very, very early on. My question is, like, what are they doing? What's going to happen with Jake Pope? What's going to happen with Ja'Cory Thomas? What's going to happen with names like that in that defensive back room at the safety position? But first and foremost, I think that's what you do. You start Malachi, you start Dan Jackson, and then it's like, hey, let's see if this freshman can figure some stuff out in a game and make some, incredible plays. And I think everything we've heard from inside sources and everything we've certainly heard come out of Kirby's mouth, it sounds like KJ is going to play. Look, that guy never addresses any true freshman because he knows how hard it is to play there. He was talking about Malachi Starks very early on. He's been talking about KJ Bolden, been willing to do so. KJ is going to play this year. Same thing moving forward in the defensive back room. It's not just safeties. You guys know this. What's going to happen at star? I think it's going to be Jonell Aguero for the foreseeable future until it ain't. Okay, so it's Jonell until it ain't. And then after that, I think you see them kind of scramble to see what they can do. Is it going to be Dalen Everett on like big time third and long, like obvious passing down situations? Maybe put him at nickel and then roll out Daniel Harris and Julian Humphrey at corner. Is it going to be, hey, maybe we play Ja'Cory Thomas at the nickel? Hey, maybe Kyron Jones gets a shot. What if that's the case? I don't believe it's going to be, though. Sounds like Jonell Aguero has had at least a much better offseason than he maybe had a early springtime. Intel was not great there. It sounds like everything has settled based off all the conversations I've had. Dalen and Julian, I envision getting the first kind of crack at corner because of the old head discussion we were having the other day. Just because Julian Humphrey is a redshirt sophomore and Daniel Harris is a true sophomore, I think you give the opportunity, or at least Kirby historically has given the opportunity to the Julian Humphrey in that situation and made Daniel Harris take it out of his hands, or made injury or some situation like that force his hand to play the younger guy there. But I also think at some point you see Ellis Robinson out there at corner. So there are plenty of questions about how the defensive back rotation as a whole is going to go. And I think for a very similar reason, you look at the wide receiver position, not identically, but very similarly in the sense that there are 6 guys for 3 starting spots. In the defensive back room, I feel like there are 8 or 9 guys for 5 starting spots. I look at this wide receiver room, and I'm going to break it down into X, Z, and slot. I think your starting X is going to be Rara. I think your starting Z is going to be Dylan Bell. I think your starting slot receiver is going to be Dominic Lovett. And then after that, you start rotating bodies in as fast as possible. Guys like Colby Young on, third and short situations where you need an RPO slant on the backside and you need a big body target, maybe in the red zone as well. Sub him in, get him in there situationally. Arian Smith, obviously have to design shots for him either in the slot as a Z receiver or bunched up as the Z receiver, or in the slot by himself as a true slot receiver. Then you're also going to have to find time for Anthony Evans as well in this roster, or on this roster it seems. So there's 6 guys for 3 spots that need to play. I didn't even talk about London Humphreys. I didn't talk about Michael Jackson III. I didn't talk about Jacoby White. I think all of those players get touches at some point in this offense as well. Plus you have to add in the equation of Oscar Delp and Ben Urasic. It's a lot of weapons weapons, okay, to get a lot of targets to. I think they'll be fine, but you got to identify these people pretty early in camp in terms of who our dudes going to be, because we've talked about it on this channel before. Mike Bobo is very much so a dude-centric offensive coordinator. He is not a system-based coordinator. He is a talent-based coordinator, and I think that behooves Georgia moving forward, because you recruit talent, you don't recruit scheme fit. You recruit best player available, let's make him fit, that kind of deal. So it helps you to have that type of offensive coordinator. And then number 3, and I kind of already mentioned it, what does Benjamin Jurasik look like? What is that going to play like? What is that going to feel like? They're not going to get an idea of what he is in pads until this fall camp, because he was a midsummer enrollee.
No,
that's it.
Well, we got to give yourself 3.
Oh, that boy Brooksy, give him 3.
I want to add a question to mine.
What happened?
How involved will the running backs be in the passing game this year?
Also player-based, right?
Yes.
Very much so player-based. DeShaun, not a route specialist.
Nope.
Kendall Milton, not a route specialist.
Nope.
Would very rarely probably win one-on-ones at Georgia during practice, I would imagine, during that hour, right? C.J. Allen probably putting the clamps on him. Smile Mondon probably putting the clamps on him. Everybody but Pop over the last several years probably putting the clamps on him. Raylan Wilson certainly doing it. Trevor Etienne, Nate Frazier might be a little something different. Might be a little something different juice out of the backfield, as was Kenny when he was healthy, as was James Cook when he was healthy. Very talent-based right there. So you're right. And to answer your question, I think you're going to see a little bit more there.
I just want to add that I thought of it while you were going over the list.
Hell yeah.
All right, starting off mine. You mentioned the defensive line. I'm just going to specifically highlight defensive tackle and who's the second name behind Nazir Stackhouse, because I think at this point, Georgia fans can feel fairly confident about the other spots on that defensive line. I think you have answers for every single spot, but it's like, who's that second rotation at defensive tackle? The addition of Xavier McLeod is a big one. It feels like that was going to be a very solid one, and Georgia fans are really going to appreciate that one. I saw a picture of Josh Jarrett the other day. He's carrying that rate really well, and he looks to be coming on to a very good season for him. But just kind of hammering down that who's going to be that number 2 guy, who's going to be that mainstay in that group. I think that's a big question for this position group moving forward into fall camp. My second one, I think this is a very valuable piece of the roster, and this is why I'm going to ask it this way. Who's the Rojack / Kyrus Jackson this season? Who is the older guy in this room that he's not going to be flashy? He's not going to put up the numbers. You think it's Rah-Rah?
It's Rah-Rah. You're describing Rah-Rah Thomas.
The glue guy.
I mean, yeah, just the glue guy. Like
every 700 yards.
Every single time you put him in there, exactly, dependable. Every single time you put him in there, he's going to do his job well. He's going to be reliable every time you throw him the football. And again, he's not going to put up these monstrous numbers, but every single time he touches the football, it's going to feel like an impactful moment in the football game.
Real lunch pail guy.
Real lunch pail guy.
I like it.
Absolutely. But yeah, who's going to be the Rojack Kyrus Jackson? I think over the last few years, it's been so valuable to this football team. So I don't know who's going to be in that role this year.
Hold on. I know you got one more, right?
Yeah.
What? Nazir Stackhouse is an NFL football player. I'm looking at the chat right now. Y'all out here wilding because Nazir Stackhouse had one bad game against Alabama. Y'all saw one clip of him getting rolled against Alabama in the middle of the third quarter. All right. And now it's 78 sucks. No. Number 78, Nazir Stackhouse at 6'4", 330 pounds. Okay. Turned down NFL offers this past offseason. Turned down NFL evaluations. Turned down 4th, 5th, 6th round evals to come back to the University of Georgia. Stop.
I mean, shoot, there's people saying that he's a top 60 player in this next draft. There's people that NFL scouts that love Nazir Stackhouse.
Love him.
I mean, why wouldn't you, man? But yeah, I think
also a great freaking human, an incredible human being. And I know y'all don't care about that sometimes, but holy hell, misguided take in the chat.
They should appreciate him because he served this university for a good amount of time and he's done a lot of good things. And my last question, just Jared Wilson, question mark. I think that's just a big question, not only because of who he's replacing, but because there's been so many positives said about him. Feel like it was didn't exactly get this answer during the spring game. Got a lot of reps in the spring game, but we didn't get like a full deep dive view of him.
He did get anointed really, really quickly.
Yeah.
You know, even Kirby did it. Kirby put expectations on the dude real early. So that was wild.
Yeah, so there's just been a lot of positives about him, and I want to see it on the football field. And I know that's not going to happen until week 1 when they play Clemson, but just kind of getting a better feel about how he's meshing with this offense, what his role exactly is going to be in this offense. I think that's a big question, not because of like, is he going to be good? Is he going to be bad? I think he's going to be very good, but just kind of like, what's the full capability? What's the ceiling of Jared Wilson?
I have another question for you.
What's up?
Well, he needs to get his 3 first.
Oh.
You can't forget
that. Boy, JWIll, give him 3.
So I'm assuming Tate is going to be the leader in that room now that SVP is gone.
Yeah.
And I don't want to pose this question in a way that insults Tate. How much of a drop off in leadership are you getting with SVP out of that room?
I don't think it's a drop off in leadership from us. Like they're not going to play hard, or they're not going to show up on time, or do the things that leaders, enforce in terms of like standards. But it's not about leadership. It's the brain that was lost, right? It's the brain that departed from the room. Mm-hmm. Having Cedric's football brain in that room enhanced their abilities. That's what has to be made up. Not, hey guys, run through the line, or hey guys, make sure our locker's clean, or hey guys, we got to give more effort during practice, or holding people to, like I said, the accountability stuff. It's more of, hey guys, I was watching 3 hours of film last night, and here's what I found, and here's what I know, and here's the tendency that I identified. Those kind of things I think might not be there unless they're picked up by somebody else. The good news is that Cedric instilled a standard of personal investment in terms of film. That offensive line room watches more film since Cedric Van Pran has gotten there than anybody that I know of. Like the idea that Monday through Thursday, that entire room is sitting together outside of meeting time, where Stacy's sitting with them and the offensive line staff is sitting with them. Outside of that, they're spending multiple hours a night watching film together. That is not par for the course in college football. Okay, so that kind of stuff is some of the stuff that's going by the wayside, not the, hey guys, we got to get our shit together that good leaders do. Great question. Kind
of going back to his question about the running back room, is there an idea of like what that opening week depth chart is going to be like?
Ooh. I think I got a nug for that. I think I got a nug for that over on patreon.com/Brooks Austin. I think there's some optimism about maybe some first week participants there in that room, maybe even some camp participants that I didn't necessarily expect to be like fully ready to rock. But hey, we might have something. Patreon.com/Brooks
Love a good nug tease.
Love a good nug tease. Love you teasing a nug tease. That was expert by you. You must have took a mental note.
For sure.
Attaboy. That's good work right there. Biggest storyline entering fall camp. What do you got? I'll go first. Can they callous, meaning can they prepare their bodies for the war that is a season of football? Can they callous themselves without any injury? I truly believe this. I think this roster that Georgia has assembled heading into this 2024 college football season is as flawless as Kirby Smart has ever had. I know that sounds crazy, but after the 2021 national title, there were still a lot of questions about the roster. We rattled through them. You had first-year starters at the inside linebacker position. The running back room got churned over. You lost George Pickens, I believe, headed into that second national title, right? There was a bunch of questions about your roster entering that season. Whether or not Stetson was going to take leap 2. What were some of the other ones we rattled off? Who was going to play star? I mean, Javon Bullard ended up stepping into that role and playing really well, but it was still a question going into the football season.
Had to replace a first-round safety.
Had to replace defensive ends that, you had to start a true freshman in Michael going into 2022. So there were a lot of not holes, but a lot of like big time question marks going into the season on the roster. Right now, it's like, who's going to be the other starting corner amongst these 4 and 5 stars that you have? Mm-hmm. That's the question we have. That's about as flawless of a roster as you can possibly get. Like, this is why I think more than any fall camp, it is important to get ready for the season. Don't get me wrong. Do the banging and clanging that Kirby Smart fully believes, and I fully personally believe you have to do to get ready for a football season, but do so without injury in every aspect possible you can attempt to do so. Do so without injury, because this roster is borderline flawless.
My storyline heading in, the biggest storyline for me is, does the year 2 Bobo apply this year for this offense? I think Bobo kind of has this track record where
he's got a year 2 trend.
I believe, I would say so.
This is news to me.
I would believe he does. But anyways, just really like year 2 with the offense, with Georgia's offense. I think do they take that step forward in year 2 under Mike Bobo? Because as crazy it is to say that, considering that they averaged 40 points per game last year, they were one of the best teams on third down. Their average yards per game in totality on offense was insane. I think you can kind of pinpoint every position and say like they could have been better though. Mm-hmm. Like the running back room could have been more explosive. Offensive line was great in pass pro, but in run game it kind of felt like it got a little sloppy sometimes, and not everything hit the way it should on a consistent rate. Wide receivers, I mean, that's kind of been an old adage of Georgia for the last couple of years of they've been good. Georgia's wide receivers have been good and they put up numbers for them, but they can still take that step forward. They can be even better. The tight end room is really the only one that this doesn't apply, other than what Brooks is mentioning of stay healthy, because that was your only thing last year in losing Bowers, and that kind of hindered you. But I think this offense, as good as they were last year, and you get so many returning pieces back, Carson Beck falls under this example as well. You have so much room to grow to that offense could be even better than it was last year. And if that's the case, you might have the best offense in college football.
Good to have Smooth back in the chat.
Yeah, I miss Smooth.
I know you did.
He's got friends now too. It's really interesting.
I'm telling you.
It's a community once you get past the whatchamacallit.
The moment we start getting other SEC fan bases in here too, it's going to get real hectic.
Tis a big fact. I can't wait. We're on the come up. Everyone that finds us says it. Best show on the internet. You're damn right. What do you got?
I have the biggest storyline coming in this year is this has to be the offseason that Carson Beck proves he has the it factor. We know he's got all the talent. We know he's got the brains to do this. We know he's got the experience at this point. He's played a full season as a starter. But if you want to be truly one of the great quarterbacks in college football and one of the Heisman contenders, you have to have that kind of a swagger. And Kirby Smart alluded to this during SEC Media Days, where he's like, hey, we're really pressuring Carson to, celebrate with his teammates, to show emotion, to kind of do certain things that turn heads, because that is one of the most important things. You can be one of the best players, one of the best mechanical players, put up all the stats. That's fine. But if you're not an exciting player and other teams outside of your fan base don't want to watch you, I think that's going to hurt your overall career. So I think having to show that you are kind of that guy, you have quote-unquote aura, is going to be very important for Carson Beck this offseason.
You know what's another word for aura?
What's that?
Foos.
Yeah, I think aura is probably a little more well known, but they do fall into the same category.
This morning, I wake up to an Instagram direct message that said, "Brooksy, I didn't want to go to work today, but I hit that foos. I hit that foos, and that made me so happy that people are out here foosing their way through life, because foos is needed. I'm telling you right now, if you ain't got no foos, you ain't gonna have no success.
I don't know if you should be foosing your way through life.
I mean, baby, look, the days you don't have it, foos got to be there. And sometimes you go through stretches where you just ain't got it.
I get that.
And you got to foos it through that day, baby.
But let's keep it in some short spurts. Let's
probably
not
don't
make
foos your whole life.
Yeah.
You don't fake juice your whole life. Sometimes you got to have the real juice.
Yes. Find you something that gives you the real juice.
But that foos is needed, man.
For sure.
That foos is needed.
It absolutely is.
We're done with biggest storylines?
Yes, sir.
All right, Rushmore 4. This is a classic example, no different than our in-state takes discussion we had the other day, where the boys and I just sit around here and start talking, and we'll eventually run ourselves into an interesting little, discovery. And this is what we did today. We sat down, and I got to thinking, I could do a Rushmore 4 at the quarterback position, but it's a tight 4. It's a real tight 4. And the moment there ain't a fifth. They ain't like, oh yeah, he deserves mention. And I thought there's only this at Georgia at the quarterback position. You can't do this at running back. There's arguments about, hey, who's the 4th or 5th best running back, right? I think when we did this today, you were like, it's Herschel, it's Chubb, it's who?
I said Herschel, Chubb, Gurley, and then it's a matter of, do I put Noshawn or Hurst in?
Or Michelle?
You put Michelle in there.
Or Noshawn, Michelle, Hurst. Who do we go, right? There's a discussion, right? We could do this at the offensive line with just Kirby's guys. Oh, yeah. We could sit here and just do 4 offensive linemen. Who's the best from Kirby's run? And not to mention Stinchcomb, not to mention all the other guys. We can't do that. We can do the same thing with defensive line, where it's like, all right, there's Pollock and there's Seymour. And then which one of the Jalen Carter, Devontae Wyatt, Jordan Davis mix do you take? And I know there's names I'm still missing there. You can't do it at defensive back, right? Defensive back, there's a plethora of these names. It's like Champ, and then just start rattling. Like 2 through 7 are all 8, 9, 10. They're all really, really great football players. Linebacker, it's impossible to do this with just the guys that Schumann has picked, right? You can't get a clear-cut Rushmore 4. But at quarterback, you certainly can. At tight end, I feel like you can't even really get a full 4 that are 100% deserving compared to the 2. The 2 are Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington, and then it's like, all right, Orson Charles makes the list for statistical reasons, but Leonard Pope, Ben Watson, okay, Arthur Lynch, we're like all staring at each other awkwardly. Okay,
right.
In terms of best,
there's
definitely
tight end. Clear cut 1A and 1B.
Definitely a clear cut 1A and 2 there in the tight end room, but it's hard to find a full 4. The wide receiver position, you got Terrence Edwards, AJ Green, Fred Gibson, and then a whole arguments for a bunch of 4th contenders. But I don't know, guys. I don't know where our experiment took us, but it basically brought me to the discussion of, this program has been so good, now great for so long. It's been great for 7 or 8 years. It was really, really good for 4 decades, since the 80s, or really since the late 70s. It's been really, really good. And they did so without a plethora of great quarterbacks. They did so without a plethora of great receivers. And they've done so without a plethora of great tight ends. And they were great everywhere else.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah, I mean, the one pushback you have on that is that the tight end position wasn't really revolutionized to like the 2000s, where you didn't have an opportunity for these guys. Like,
they were extensions of the run game for a long time.
They were 6 tackles essentially, or 6 O linemen. So that's the one argument you have as to why there's not enough on the Mount Rushmore there. But quarterbacks and wide receivers, absolutely. Like, Georgia's never really been known for their ability to air it out, but yet they've been a very successful team.
But even then, I mean, that wide receiver Mount Rushmore conversation gets really
still
hairy
a lot of
quickly.
Yeah, I mean, again,
like we didn't even mention Tavares King in our conversation earlier.
Shout out.
No. Muhammad Masqua got a shout.
Yeah, I think we narrowed it down.
Underrated.
Ward obviously got a shout.
Yeah, it was like Terrence Edwards, Fred Gibson, AJ Green, and then it was Muhammad Masqua, Malcolm Mitchell, Tavares King.
You could
Hines Ward,
Pickens if you want to, from a
George Pickens
standpoint.
You get into these, but there's no like Chris Durham. I think Chris Durham is a little bit far-fetched here. Great NFL career, and one of the craziest dudes ever to watch warm up. It's so funny. Brian McClendon was the wide receivers coach in 2015, I think Durham's last year, and he obviously is now the wide receivers coach at Georgia. The warm up has not changed. What they go out and do has not changed at all. I remember watching it as a patron, and then watching it as a media guy, both in a Georgia uniform or him in a Georgia polo. It has not changed. Durham was insane how big, how long, how athletic that human being was. Could not route a single soul up, but has 6 or 7 years worth of an NFL career because of what God gave that man.
Yeah.
Which is 6'6", 225, run like deer.
Mm-hmm.
That'll do.
I think you could also find, it's easy to find 4 for the coaches.
Yeah.
They haven't had many.
No, they
haven't.
I got
2. Oh, 3. Who's the 4th?
Wally Butts.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, that's a good point.
Where's Frank Sinkwich in this conversation?
It's so hard. I mean, Frank Sinkwich.
Was he like a B-back?
He was everything.
Todos.
He was
Todos los posiciones.
All you needed was one.
He was listed at tailback, but that was when tailback was the quarterback position.
Yeah.
Like, it was direct snap. He would either run it, he would sometimes throw it, and he just ended up being the best player on the field. Like, Frank Sinkwich, as great as that legacy is, he played in such a game of football that's so unrecognizable that you can't really put it on a list.
This guy has had some takes, but Frank Sinkwich being mid is a hot ass take.
He's not mid. No. Don't gaslight the arm.
Clip it.
Don't gaslight
Clip it down.
He's not mid.
Post it on Facebook.
Just a different era.
Young Georgia reporter calls Frank Sinkwich mid.
You know what? That would bring traffic to the show. So you know
it would.
Oh,
negative traffic.
The real audience knows the truth, though, so that's fine.
That's crazy. You called that man mid. That's insane.
Terrible.
It does say a lot again about the roster strategy. One question I did have about this subject: what does Carson have to do to bump any one of these guys off? Because I think the 4 at quarterback are obvious. It's Murray, it's Stafford, it's Green.
So the guy who's going to bump off is David Green.
Yeah,
that'd be the guy that would.
I don't know, man. I had a take on you earlier today. I delivered it. Should I deliver it here? Is it a little too hot?
If you feel safe in this space, you're more than welcome.
It's my space. Where else am I going to feel safe?
I want to hear it.
You want to hear this?
Say it.
I'm going to give it. Matt Stafford's career at Georgia, tremendously overrated. Tremendously overrated.
The
stats aren't insane. He didn't win. He's just immensely talented. He's just crazy talented. But he didn't win. His career at Georgia was not good.
I don't think that's an extremely hot take.
I'll push back on the he didn't win. For the program, I mean, he had winning seasons, and he won 10 games twice out of his 3-year career, and he was undefeated in bowl games. I would say that he did win games, but I think it's absolutely, like, if you listen to people talk about Matthew Stafford, if you listen to people talk about, like, Georgia fans say, like, he's the greatest and most talented quarterback to ever come through Georgia, and then you give a Google search of Matthew Stafford college stats, and you go, oh, like...
If Matthew Stafford's NFL career looked like Blake Bortles', what is Matthew Stafford to University of Georgia fans?
If he say that again?
If Matthew Stafford's NFL career looked like Blake Bortles', meaning they get drafted really high and they flame out, what do Georgia fans think of Matthew Stafford? Because I think people hold Matthew Stafford in the limelight that they do in Georgia lore because of how immensely talented he was.
Agreed.
And he was so immensely talented that it was palpable. No one could disagree. He is the most talented human being to ever play the position. However, he did not win at an elite rate. Okay, at an elite rate, he did not win. And you can't tell me it was because he didn't have elite offensive talent around him, or he didn't have help. He just didn't have defensive help.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you could say he didn't win at an elite rate. I mean, he won a Sugar Bowl at a time when it was meaningful to win a Sugar Bowl. Like, remember, like, this is 15 years ago.
Black jerseys beat shit out of Hawaii.
Yeah.
Can't spell sugar without UGA.
That's right. The way I remember Matthew Stafford's career,
by the way, not sugar. Go ahead.
The way I remember Matthew Stafford's career, and granted, this was in my infancy of being a college football fan, was, holy shit, we have this freshman who is so insanely talented in 2006. 2007 was, hey, we have a really good team. We tripped up against a Steve Spurrier, South Carolina, and got beat by a very good Tennessee team in Knoxville, I believe. And they were anointed national champions in 2008. Like there's people with 2008 national champions tattoos, and that 2008 season was rather disappointing because you ran into Florida and all the things along the way. So Matthew Stafford, I would say his career is looked at very well because there haven't been, frankly, that many.
He was the first of his kind at Georgia.
Yeah, there haven't been many elitely talented quarterbacks at Georgia where you go, oh my god, their arm strength. Like Stetson Bennett, as talented he was, I don't think his arm compares to Matthew Stafford. Like Jake Fromm wasn't this. The guys you had afterwards, like, so it's kind of hard to say.
We know the Truceless Boy Wonder wasn't. Yeah.
I mean, Aaron Murray, as great as his career was, and it's the greatest career in the SEC, like, talent-wise, it was like, oh, Matthew Stafford still has that.
Yeah.
So,
hence the name.
I don't think it's overrated to hold Matthew Stafford's career with such regard. I do think it's overrated to say, like, he was one of the best quarterbacks ever.
So, back to the original question. Who gets bumped off? By a Carson Beck 4,100-yard, Final Four loss.
David Green? Yeah.
I'm saying Stafford's off mine. Because this dude's going to go 1-1 too. This dude's going to get selected number 1 overall. He's going to have a 12-year NFL career, 14-year NFL career.
Yeah, but what is David Green to stay? Like, why would you put David Green over Stafford?
Dude, David Green won 10 games. David Green, when he left college, was the all-time winningest quarterback in the history of college football.
Right.
That's what he has. In my mind, David Green was Georgia football for half of a decade. And y'all talking about bringing in a new era of college
he did
football.
Come at a time when
y'all talking about bringing in a new era of college football.
Yeah.
That football program was not doing well before the 2000s, the early 2000s.
That's fair. He turned that program around, definitely.
So maybe it's not just cut and dry. David Green's off the list.
No.
But, I mean, I don't know.
That's actually a really good question when I think about it.
But I think, too, like, if you think about, like, a Mount Rushmore of athletes, David Green absolutely impacted the program a massive amount. Matthew Stafford has impacted this program. The talent speaks for itself as well, but he had a big impact. I mean, he drew a national spotlight to that university, and I think it continued to carry on for a good bit.
I also think you would have this Mount Rushmore of 1-2 national champions, had the highest passing season by any quarterback, holds the
most talented of all time,
holds the career record for SEC yards, 1 overall in the NFL draft, and then it's changed the trajectory of a program. As great as that is, and as special as David Green is, that gets bumped by another guy who potentially wins a Heisman, wins a Natty, and goes with number 1 overall.
That's true.
Unfortunately. Not to diminish David Green's career.
But that does mean that after this year, the quarterback position is no more clear-cut.
That's right. Unless he stinks it up, which he ain't going to do.
No, I highly doubt that.
All right, the Rushmore 4 exercise. Pretty fun, pretty revealing as well. Is there a wide receiver on the roster that makes this list?
There could be. I mean, Dominic Lovett could have one of these seasons. But that's the weird thing. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I don't know that any of them right now have the longevity to do it.
Maybe Zacoby White in the future?
Maybe. It would have to be one of those guys. Well, or like if London Humphreys goes on to have a great 3-year career.
Or maybe they never have one of these again because they have classes like they did. Well, they took 4. They're going to take 4 in this class, attempt for a 5th. But, I think I always forget last year they only took 2 receivers. Nitro Tuggle and Zacoby White. And they weren't those weren't household names in the recruiting world.
Yeah.
Those are local or in small recruiting strategies.
But at this point, whoever it is, whatever receiver has 1,000-yard season at Georgia is going to be anointed as one of the best Georgia receivers of all time.
Lord.
Slap him up
because that drought has
girls
been
are going to be pulling out Nikons to take photos.
That's what I was going to say is if Dylan Bell comes out here and puts up 1,000 yards though, he's up there.
If Colby Young does that in his first year of the program and then says, peace out, I'm going to the NFL, he'll be anointed as the best Georgia receiver. So,
all right, we got a couple minutes before the show is over tonight. So I want to talk about the cookout this weekend, and I'm going to pull up a post over on patreon.com/Brooks Austin. Let's talk about this visitors list. There is a camp going on tomorrow, the final camp of the year, and I want to read some names that will be camping per my sourcing. Jared Curtis and Ryan Montgomery are going to throw tomorrow. Nasir McCoy, the safety from Buford, I'm really interested to see how he does tomorrow at the camp availability. Let's see here. Rodney Colton is a 2026 linebacker that's committed to South Carolina right now. Very intriguing prospect. If he has gotten faster, I would imagine they've got some catapults on these kids tomorrow. If he's gotten any faster at all, I expect Georgia to get somewhat involved in that. Kid's out of Noonan High School. He's really fluid as an athlete. Just doesn't quite run fast enough to play linebacker at Georgia right now, or at least per the last testings that they've had from him. I'm trying to look at some of these other names. Carter Lucky is a 2026 defensive lineman. You will recognize the name. He is indeed Lawson's younger brother. He's Lawson's Lawson's little big bro. Lawson's brother, Carter, is 6'6", 265 pounds and plays defensive end at Norcross High School. Certainly worth a look. Certainly worth a peep there. That's the camp list. Those are the guys that are going to be getting after it in the final summer camp for the University of Georgia this summer. Now, here is the cookout visitors list. Jared Curtis, Ryan Montgomery at the quarterback position, Bo Walker, and Anthony Turbo Rogers, who I believe is still committed to Alabama. Super fast running back that was at IMG Academy, has since moved back to Alabama to finish out his high school career. 2 wide receiver commits, London Roldan, the kid out of North Oconee, and Taylon Taylor will be in town. Aaron Gregory, the wide receiver out of Douglas County, will be in town as well, and Devin Carter. Super interested to see what they end up doing in the recruitment of Aaron Gregory. That's one that's super highly contested nationally for a guy that's going to be borderline 5-star prospect out of Douglasville. Ethan Barbour and Nayland Scott will be on campus. I'm still flabbergasted by the fact that they have Nayland Scott listed as a tight end and classified as a tight end, being recruited as a tight end. That kind of, he's a big X. He's more like Colby Young than he is like Elias Williams or Ethan Barbour. So interesting there. Jackson Cantwell, who will be the number 1 tackle probably in the 2026 class, will be on campus, as will Mason Short and Dontrell Glover. And here's the big names, right? Elijah Griffin, Justice Terry, Stephon Shivers, and Christian Garrett will be on campus this weekend as well. Justice Terry was a late addition to the list this week. I've always said on this channel, and especially over on Patreon, I feel really good about Georgia signing both of those individuals come December. We won't hear a commitment this weekend out of either of them, I don't believe. Elijah Griffin's going to wait until National Signing Day. That's kind of been known for a while. We'll see how that ultimately plays out. But I think both those kids end up at Georgia. Isaiah Gibson and Darren Inkanagbon will be in town this weekend, as will Zayden Walker and Tyler Atkinson. Zayden Walker and Tyler Atkinson, the only two linebackers in town this week. I don't think it's by coincidence. I think that's by design. Okay, this cookout list is always kind of reserved for very important and very must-have type of recruitments. It has always felt like Jalen Morgan, Shamari Earls, Jonte Gilbert, a huge name on this list as well, and Dominic Kelly will be the defensive backs in town this week. Some massive recruitments there. Obviously, I think Jonte Gilbert's recruitment has become more and more important. The defensive back out of Douglas High School here in Metro Atlanta. I think that one's become super important with how the defensive back class has played out and the lack of true takes that are available at the position this class. Obviously, Justice Terry and Elijah Griffin being in town is huge, but I've always told you, like I said, I feel good about those. Any thoughts, comments, questions, concerns, gentlemen?
Nah, you covered it pretty well.
Rat-a-tat-tat. I'm like that. Appreciate you guys for joining in, man. It was a great week of content here on the Film Guy Network.
We've got a couple more topics we can cover.
Do we want to?
We didn't touch Trevor Etienne.
We didn't touch Trevor Etienne. Yeah. Trevor Etienne played 2 years at Florida, transferred to Georgia, has Florida defensive lineman talking some shit. Do you have the quote?
Yeah, I do. So the defensive lineman was, I don't know if it was a media availability or if it was a person interview.
It was something with a microphone.
Yeah, he was asked, what team are you most excited to play this season? It was Florida defensive lineman Cam Jackson. He said, Georgia. If you know why, you know why. It's just that one specific person. Like, I want to beat Georgia too, but it's that one specific person who I'm trying to get after for sure.
Unique hatred.
Yeah, that's of course in reference to Trevor Etienne.
Trevor Etienne. And here was my first thought process. Lil bro syndrome here, as someone who's got it. We'll always have little bro syndrome. Right now, Florida's got a little case of it, especially with comments like this, because I don't remember on the other side, because this is not the first time this has happened. It's actually happened twice in the inverse. Brenton Cox and Jalen Kimber will finish and did finish their football careers with the University of Florida. I think Jalen might have transferred again already. Is it Penn State?
Transferred again.
Is it Penn State? I think
something like that.
Either way, it's happened in the inverse. The only difference, and to be completely fair, this would hurt a whole hell of a lot more if it was actually a meaningful player from Georgia's roster going to Florida, whereas instead of backups who couldn't get playing time going to Florida. So this certainly hurts, I guess, more when it's a meaningful player, as it would have like if A.D. Mitchell would have transferred to Florida instead of Texas.
Yeah, I mean, to further hit home that like Georgia doesn't have this complex, is Georgia players weren't like, oh, we're really excited to play this one player in the SEC championship when Jermaine Burton went to Alabama. Like, it was business as usual. So, and I get it that there is that kind of sense of, hey, you left us, we want to get back at you. But to come out and publicly say that, it doesn't look great for you, I don't think. It does make you seem like you have a little brother complex.
Yeah. Save the comments. You know? Yeah. This is what media training is all about. I almost want to tell people, not that I don't wish this because it can get bothersome sometimes, but when parents ask me questions about certain programs, I almost want to bring that up next time. Just like pay attention to small things like media training. How many of these programs just don't care what their players say, and they just let them go out and they don't train them how to speak in front of the cameras? Whereas we go out to the Elite 11. I know you guys weren't there this year, but the Elite 11 spent an entire day training those quarterbacks how to be properly media trained because they knew that they were going to go out there and answer questions. The Elite 11's doing it. But clearly, Florida is not, because people who are media trained will not even provide that quote. Who are you looking forward to play? I'm looking forward to play everybody on schedule. It's the SEC schedule. Thanks for asking. Next question.
Clemson's first on the schedule.
Yeah, Clemson's first on the schedule. Really excited for that one. We got some cool home games this year. Really, really pumped. Maybe we can get College Game Day in town. Thanks. You do not have to do this stuff. In fact, you should actively avoid these types of questions.
And the great programs always do. I always think back to, I don't remember who it was, but it was a defensive lineman on Alabama for the 2018, I think it was the Orange Bowl, when Bama played Oklahoma, and they were asked about Kyler Murray, and he starts going, well, you know, I don't think he's...
Oh, it's Quinnen Williams.
Was it Quinnen Williams?
Yeah.
It was basically like he stops mid-sentence and just like realized like, oh, shit, I don't need to be saying
I don't need to be saying that.
And they're like, do you want to finish that statement? He goes,
Chat's got allegations tonight, JWIll. Chat's got allegations.
Those are some crazy allegations.
False accusations.
Clearly, I need to describe myself a little better, apparently. Give people a better in-look on my life.
Man drops a little intel on some nugs, and all of a sudden, you're a hippie.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, that's a bit with Henry where he says that your beard's too long.
Every time my beard gets a little too long, I'm a hippie, and I need to shave it.
Y'all need to pay a little more attention to my boy JWIll. That's not the steez over there, man.
Clean shaven, bro.
Yeah.
Got to keep it clean shaven.
The guy's married to a kindergarten teacher. You think he's toking the devil's lettuce? No. We'll see you guys.